Welcome to the Hytale Roundtable. We just got some of the biggest Hytale news of the year, and I have some of the biggest Hytale creators to discuss everything, what it talks about, and the future of Hytale. Let's start with the introductions. Who do I have the pleasure of talking with?
Hey, I'm Connor, or Quebec Connor. Hi. I'm sorry, it feels so weird because we were just talking, but hope you're doing good, everyone at home. We're ready to talk Hytale.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is it my turn?
I think so.
Oh, well, I am 30 Virus. I'm known as the Skyblock guy. I wanted to be known as the Hytale guy, and someday that's gonna happen, I'm sure. If a few years from now, maybe.
It'll happen at one point. We don't know when.
At
though.
one point.
All right, it's my turn. Hello, I am Redoons. I'm just a red guy that likes to play video games for fun. I do Minecraft. Just like 30. One day in the hopefully near future, I too will be a Hytaler. I think that's the term that the community has agreed upon.
Is that the word we're using?
I think the Hytaler.
Queeb.
No, we're not using Queeb.
I
refuse to think that Quebecs are the poster board child for Hytale.
They were on the right launcher.
They were. It's
Not anymore, though.
Not anymore. Not anymore. We can talk about that.
Oh, well, that's right. Anyways, I am a proud pre-launch Hytaler.
That's
as we
awesome.
all are.
We all are.
As we all are.
Yep.
And everyone watching this as well is also pre-Hytaler.
Okay, listen. In my community, everyone's like, oh, you're still following that game? I'm like, yeah, since December 13th, 2018. And they're like, how the fuck do you know that date? I'm like, oh, hyperfixation started then. But anyways, that is my very long introduction. Bezzy.
Hi. So yeah, I'm flattered that I'm here, but I don't actually have any videos on my channel right now, so I'm not technically a creator in this moment. I'm mostly known for my work on 30's channel, and I am again also a proud pre-release Hytaler. Looking forward to really everything. I'm excited about everything coming with that game.
We're gonna put that title in our LinkedIn in 30 years. Pre-Hytale community member. Once the game has been like the biggest thing.
Hytale. Yes.
We'll put that as like a certification on LinkedIn. We'll get that sorted out. And then you guys are watching this on my channel, but if you guys don't know who I am, I'm also a Hytale YouTuber. I do the latest news updates and any kind of Hytale videos. And we've been waiting for a long time with this blog post. Before this starts, I know everyone else on the call can't see my webcam right now because Windows likes to make it so that OBS and Discord, you can't have the webcam on at the same time, but I am wearing a brand new shirt given to me by Ryan, a community member, the log.drip shirt. I'm going to stand up real quick.
Let's go!
Yeah.
It is the log.
Hold on, wait, I have a solution. Screen share disc or no OBS.
I could do that, but we're already too deep. You know what I mean?
What?
We're already too deep.
But how will I know what this shirt looks like?
Because I sent a screenshot in the chat already.
Just imagine log.zip's face.
Just scroll up
really
in the
surprised.
Discord.
Just
Oh my
imagine
God,
log.zip.
It's just log.zip doing a thumbnail
That
face.
that is great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's probably the face we all had when we found out that Monday we had a blog post of the development update. And I think we're just going to head straight into it because I think that's what most people want to care about. What were you guys' initial thoughts on the blog post?
Ooh, I think I could start here. The first I saw the blog post was actually people's reaction on Twitter, because as it was happening, my computer was out of commission. I was fixing my RAM. But when I saw the reaction, a lot of people didn't understand what they saw with that little video of the before and after. I think that's excellent news, personally. The fact that, like, at least in my mind, it looks like the new engine is back where the old one was when we saw, like, gameplay footage in, like, 2019. What that says is that we're probably pretty close. The fact that they had to redo everything and now we're back here again. I mean, think about it, right? In 2018, we saw that footage and we're like, oh yeah, the game's launching in a year and a half.
Oh, Connor, you
And,
just disappeared?
Oh, Connor's gone.
Oh no, we lost
2
him.
seconds. 2
Man
seconds.
down.
Should
Okay.
I stop talking?
No, you're fine.
no,
You're
no.
fine.
I'm back.
This is getting
I'm
kinda
back. Sorry about that.
Welcome back.
Hello.
But no, in my mind, this is great news because it means we're actually close to release because now we've made it through the development hell, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, that is a bold statement to say that we're close to release. I want to hear what everyone else's thoughts are. Connor, do you think you can back that up with what 30's saying? It's a positive sign.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, because obviously we're on the new engine now, so all of the problems from the last 4 years are behind us, right? So technically, there should be no obstacles in the way other than developing the game, which we thought was the only thing left to do in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
So I feel like we are now officially where we should have been back then when the trailer came out, but obviously they didn't realize what they had on their hands when they released the trailer. And then after Riot bought them, so much more pressure and public sort of eyes on them and everything, and they became like a player in the industry. So I think that now they've dealt with all the, oh wait, we're probably not going to be good enough things, and now they're like, right, we know we're going to be good enough, we just now need you guys to give us that little bit more time that we would have gave them if this was the point they were at after the trailer came out. So yeah, I'm hopeful.
Redunes.
Yeah.
I want to hear what
honestly,
Redune's thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I don't know if I'd say that we're close to release. I don't really agree with that sentiment. I'm sorry. I'm one of those.
Well, I should clarify what close means. I think within the next 12 to 15 months. That's my. I think around a year.
No, that's exactly what I thought you meant by close, and I don't think that's.
I don't think anyone was thinking that 30 meant this November we're getting the game.
No. I was thinking maybe like I don't know. I'm hopeful on 2027, which is a very I know that's a number that a lot of people don't like here. Yeah, I can see y'all's faces. Y'all like.
Wait, I just realized you said 2027. I like zoned out for a second. You're not one of those.
No, I said I'm hopeful it's 2027.
My vision was blurry when you said that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna take some more time.
So you think 2028 could even be a possibility if 2027 is your hopeful guess?
I think it's like not out of the equation.
Okay, that's interesting.
Get him out.
Listen. Best situation 2026, like best optimal situation.
Okay, I mean it's a different opinion. I'm here to hear it.
Then again, like what John did just come out and say like the other day that they are releasing Zone 4 and it's gonna be like this whole other component. So maybe 2026 is actually in the equation now.
I think we should revisit this topic after we've talked about a few of the other things.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the zones. It's a big
For the
discussion.
blog post itself, I feel like a lot of us have like had this like, not the stance or not stance, but like whenever we talk about Hytale to others, they're like, oh, where the frick is Hytale in terms of development right now? We're like, they're rebuilding the engine, and they're like, oh, so like. They're not even making the game yet. Like, people don't really understand this, like, whole point that, like, Hytale is the engine and the platform and whatnot. So it's a bit reassuring that they're kind of reaching an end state of, like, not end state, but they're reaching a point where they're able to port everything over there comfortably.
Right, and you mentioned a word that was used in the blog post. They use porting, and that's actually not the term that they like to use. I'm just going to read this paragraph real quick. Blancs will put us in a position to get us back to fast iteration on our core gameplay, building off our successful combat playtests and minigame prototypes and beginning the process of porting our creative play features over from our old engine. Porting isn't a term we've used to describe development before. In video game development, porting typically refers to transitioning gameplay from one platform to another. In our case, we're in a hybrid stage. In some cases, we've transitioned the active development of features from the legacy engine to the new one, and in other cases, we're porting near complete experiences or content to the new engine. It means we have the potential to move fast, but our velocity is also less predictable. So, very important word that they used in this blog post.
It's not
that actually confused me.
No, it's not that they don't like the term. It's that they haven't like been in a position where they've been using that term before.
Right, and they kind of have like a different way of interpreting
it. Doesn't fully describe the situation they're in right now.
But that makes sense, and that's just like the last thing I'll say before I hand over to Fancy. They've been like very clear that like certain things from like the legacy are going to be revisited entirely. Like, for instance, like the factions, then we've heard of like combat and whatnot. So it makes sense that not everything is being ported. Stuff like, models and behavior could be, but Like certain things are probably going to be revisiting as a whole and developing from the ground up again. But they just have a much clearer sight in mind, so it's going to be swifter regardless. But yeah, no, I think this is good. I think it's good, and it's optimistic for the future. It's just, I don't know. Once again, ideally 2026, hopeful to 2027.
Says
Wow.
he's optimistic, has the least optimistic date.
Yeah, this is it's.
But to be fair, there's a difference between being optimistic and being naive.
Okay.
This is true.
Tough
And
words.
that's not
Tough
a
words.
jab. That is not a jab. But we have all been like naive before. Thought 2021 was the launch time.
But it was supposed to be.
Well, we were in the dark, to be
it was
fair.
supposed to be right.
We were in the dark.
We were in the
We
dark.
we have all the reasons why that wasn't the case in the end. Like,
Okay, but even then,
we
a lot of
don't
us
have
thought-
those reasons
Then again,
anymore.
2023 was going to be the next one.
No.
And then again,
no.
we were.
They never
lot
officially
of
said. They said.
No, they never
we're-
officially
But
promised.
a lot of people, when they said 2021 is not it, boys, everyone was like,
Yeah,
okay,
but that was-
2023.
That was Cope, though. That wasn't the devs. I mean, they
Right.
said at a minimum
that's what
it
I'm
would
saying.
not
Naive.
release until
Have
that.
they said
yeah.
2024? Have they said 2025?
Well, they just said 2023
No,
and
they stopped-
onwards.
Yeah, they stopped giving dates after that.
Or here's
My
I have the
point
exact
is-
quote, if I may.
my
However,
point
we
is
no longer
that-
expect to be ready to launch Hytale before 2023 at the earliest, and it could very well take longer. That's the exact quote.
Right. My point is that I'm giving them their time to make the game as great as it can. I'm chilling over Minecraft till then. They don't like. I don't know. I have no reason to rush a release date just for my own hope at the moment. I know not everyone's in that position, but yeah, that's why I take the stand.
Yeah,
Looking at
you got
30.
that right. Just shuffle it.
And the other guy in
I
question
think-
too,
I
Fezzi.
think-
I
sorry,
Yeah, me
Fezzi,
and
go for
Fezzi
it.
are in a very similar
Uh,
position.
Yeah. So, well, my interpretation of the paragraph where they talked about porting was more specifically when they said hybrid stage was that I think that what they're doing is they are still making new concepts for the game. They're still creating for the game. On top of that, they're porting from the legacy engine. So it's a hybrid stage. They're kind of doing both at the same time, I think, which it's a good thing. Like my interpretation of the whole thing, of course, is good. It can't be anything else than positive. But my thing, I don't necessarily think I'm not as doomer as Red Noon, I guess, in this situation. I don't think it's necessarily 2027 or 8. I think I'm like a year or two behind him. I think that like 2027 could. I think 2027's on the table. I think 2026 is more likely. And I think that 2025 would be the absolute best, like no way case scenario where
Once
we're just
again,
so lucky.
I just want to add, I'd be stoked if it comes out sooner. I just have the thought that I do.
Well, I don't disagree
yeah.
with that thought, which is why I mean, could it take till 2028? Is there a world out there where it does? Yes.
Well, I can.
No.
I
100%.
personally
I
can
actually don't
explain
think
my
so.
reasoning
I think
once
so.
we get to the other parts of this blog. I'm holding off right now.
Because
I'm waiting.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think it could take until.
I
I,
feel
think
like
it's
we can-
possible it takes until
We can
2028.
definitely go on more about this in the whole 2025 and onwards, but I definitely have
We
a
could.
stance.
It's
like,
not a
why-
very productive conversation.
It's not a
though.
productive discussion
not.
because the release date debate is something that's like long.
Oh,
debated
it's
constantly.
been since the dawn of time.
Since the dawn of humanity.
And yeah, we can definitely do an entire roundtable just about the release date,
Yeah,
but we have an entire blog post to go over. And
Yeah,
the
sure.
first,
Let's get into it for your retention, dude.
the first
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
big thing that everyone was waiting for is the promised engine progress showcase. John Hendricks said that the next blog post that I'm writing, and that was very key because we got the technical blog that wasn't from him, and this one was from him, was going to showcase screenshots / gameplay of the new engine, and that / was kind of important because it really was like 2 screenshots, but it was the new engine nonetheless, and there's a lot of controversy about this showcase. I'm gonna hand it off to Connor first.
Wait, what was the question? Sorry.
Just about the engine. There wasn't necessarily
what
a
do you
question.
think
Just
about
like
the new engine stuff?
engine
like, the new
showcase.
engine compared to legacy.
Well, okay. First and foremost, I
Do
think that,
people
like,
deserve
people take.
to feel the way they do with this?
I think people take what John says way too seriously. I feel like John is a bit of like loose cannon on the team as far as like he just tweets answers and opinions and stuff, and I feel like that's fine. He's like obviously allowed to do that, and he obviously gets permission to. I just think that the amount of times John's had to clarify certain things that he said, or like they've been misinterpreted, or took a certain way and then something's not happened, I've got over the point of looking at John's stuff as like religious, right? Like, so when he said we were getting gameplay, I was like, okay, that is bold statement to make, and I expected gameplay with this blog post. But I kind of had like that little tiny part of me in my head that was like, don't get too excited, which I know a lot of people in the community don't have if they're new. Seeing that from a game director, it makes you get really excited really quickly. Like the game director said there's going to be new gameplay in the blog post, which is coming soon. So I'm not going to lie, I kind of expected a bit more gameplay. I was a little bit disappointed that we only got a 12-second sort of zoom out of the engine in its current state. Now, I don't have a problem with the fact that there wasn't animations or anything, because like it's a work in progress, right? And the comparison was cool because they have got it looking pretty spot on, other than a few things here and there. But I was kind of vibing that we'd get something a bit more, like whether it's a mob moving or a character's animations or a mechanic, just anything, maybe even without the UI, just it being demonstrated in third person, on the camera. But we got a still, and it's, it's fine, take what we get. But yeah, I was a little bit polarized by it. I know that other people probably were as well, especially considering obviously we go off people like John's comments to then, excite everyone and tell everyone what's coming. So I'm sure we played our part as well in being like, dude, there's gonna be gameplay in the next blog post. And now it's like this footage of a chest and a tree and a cave, which is not exactly the most exciting thing to everyone in the world if you're not into game dev, obviously. So yeah.
There was one thing I wanted to mention, is you said like John was hyping us up, and he definitely was. He was teasing it a lot. Like every other comment, he was like, okay, yeah, new blog post and something like that. And then there was, for context, I run a Hytale podcast every week, and the last episode I kind of told Canadian Flash, I was like, there's something in my head that popped up like just out of the blue, and I was like, what if the next blog post and like the engine reveal isn't everything we're hyping it up to be? Like, what if it just, exists and it's not this crazy thing? And so that kind of like reminded me of what you said with like, okay, yeah, but, don't take everything John says for granted. And he replied to my announcement of that podcast episode saying, wait, we can't show screenshots until our rendering in the new engine is better than the legacy engine. Because I mentioned like how I was hyping it up too. I was like, yeah, I mean, we've seen some older screenshots that weren't necessarily up to, standards, and hopefully this new engine reveal is going to showcase that it's brand new, it's better and everything. And he was like, okay, hold your horses though. It's not better right now. It's maybe up to par. And that's kind of where everyone, I think, needed to see that tweet, is like, it's not going to be this shiny new thing. It's in progress.
In response to that though as well, like, I do think though, even if John hadn't have mentioned anything about us getting new gameplay, I do think that this gameplay we got specifically at the very start of the blog post, I'm not saying the blog post was bad at all, but the very start of the blog post with that new gameplay did feel quite underwhelming, especially if you don't have all the context of things like the John tweet and everything.
So,
just seeing this is the next big update from Hytale, it's like, ooh, wait a minute.
I have some comments on
real quick. When we say new gameplay, are we just referring to the chest cave screenshot?
Yeah, just
the gameplay.
Yeah,
okay. Or the
for a second, I was a bit
dolly
lost on the gameplay. Did I miss something?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Not really gameplay.
Technically, it was probably in whatever their version of like a replay mod is. But I have some comments on this, I feel like, to the people that are disappointed by what they saw. Like, yeah, it's not flashy, but like the thing about development, I CS dropout, so I'm not the greatest authority on this, but I do a good bit of coding in my free time. So what the thing with games is that so much of the work could go unnoticed. Like, 99% of the work they did is not visible in these videos. And once they finally get the systems up and running, let's say with a mob and animations, like all of us would probably be pretty excited to see like some scene of like a mob like doing some crazy attack and like destroying terrain or whatever. But like once you've already coded that like once in the way that they have, where you can set up custom 3D models with however many limbs they have, and they move in these ways and they animate in these ways. Once they have that set up, it wouldn't take that much more effort to just make more, you know, because everything's already done. They have the systems in place, right? So I see a clip like this and I'm like, you know, like, it's pretty. It's not that much more interesting looking than the old engine, but like, this is an engine they're willing to use like now. Like, they weren't willing to use that old engine and they had to rebuild this first. Yeah. So the fact that we're here, like I was saying earlier, like, I really do think they intended to launch Hytale in like mid 2019. And based on the trailer coming out, like basically 6 months before that, with the gameplay we saw, from that, I would extrapolate the reason that my anticipated release date's a bit more forward than the rest of yours is because I recognize that, wow, the new engine is in a place where it looks close to playable. And I would not be surprised if, like, they've made the systems and now it's just a matter of, oh, okay, now we need to import the mobs, and they could maybe even make a tool for importing mobs, right? If the format's all the same for all the old stuff, why not just make a little Python script to translate? Like, I don't know. I'm not a part of the dev team, but to me, it seems like a really... people don't recognize what they have here. This is the new engine. Yep. This is essentially what we're going to be using right here in front of us.
I get hung up on the fact that, like, it's almost like there's two ways they could go about any release of any information. It's like they can release it for like the core fans or like the really technical people who see a clip like that and say what you did, 30, where it's like, oh my god, they've come so far, and they can go even further now that they've got to this point. But then sometimes I feel like I'm always waiting for like one of those blog posts that is made for the people, like made for the players, and like I really thought with the technical explainer we got, I thought that was the one for the core people, and then the big one that's going to be like really public facing is going to be this one. But this one wasn't really that either. It wasn't really, you can go shout this from the rooftops and it'll go viral on Twitter because it's, you know, this crazy thing happening in game. I think that's where I got hung up on that specifically.
The thing is,
I see a point.
They're all devs. They have that perspective where this is exciting for them. But I think they struggle with sharing that excitement and sharing why this is exciting. And I think that putting an extra, like, I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't mind the concept of just this blog never happening and then a few months from now a big one drops with the pretty stuff to make the community excited. Because, like, at the end of the day, like, I enjoy stuff like this, devs enjoy stuff like this, we enjoy stuff like this, but the general audience really is gonna skim over this and then go, okay, they didn't announce a release date, and then click the X. Like, that's just the way it is.
Red, I know you wanted to interject. You have some comments on this.
On which part?
The engine, I guess. You haven't gotten really to say your piece yet.
Well, I don't really have anything to properly interject about. I guess, like, from like a general blog post standpoint with people like being disappointed, like, I feel like they do the surface of just quickly explaining like some of the small improvements or changes. One of the things I don't know I've been like very focused on for some reason is the skybox. I don't know why that's like what caught my eye, but like if you look at the new engine compared to the legacy was just kind of like, you know, sky blue bright. The new one actually has like clouds and whatnot. Spoiler alert, the clouds are not squares or cubes. They're like painted swirls. Yeah, which I actually find kind of neat, but I am curious what that entails for like other stuff, but that's just, you know, it's probably just a placeholder, so I'm not going to get into it. The one thing I did hear the other day when you were talking High Circle was a lot of people were commenting like they could have used a better kind of scenery to explain like this whole, like if you look at like Thomas's explanation to talk about shading, lighting, shadows, long distance features, ideally like fog, weather, trees, foliage, yada yada yada, particles. I thought what could have been very cool, you know, that one like the opening scene of Hytale, like the trailer where it's like in the valley, but there's also like a night one in that like scene where, around the campfire. I feel like that scene could have been very cool to have replicated new engine to old engine. But that's just because I feel like a lot of people would have become like very nostalgic and also hyped about that just because it's such an iconic scene or, you know, environment. But it has like everything you could show. It has like the long distance with like, you know, the mountains in the background. It has like the foliage from the trees. It has like the lighting, the shadows from the fire. But I don't know, in terms of the engine, like definitely, you know, we can see that the engine is making progress. But like I think it was you, Myne, that mentioned like how there's certain stuff that is still not up to par or improved from Legacy because they're still working on it. So like I feel like that has to be taken in with a grain of salt. But I mean, clearly, like, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we can't really comprehend visibly that, you know, they're clearly proud of, so that they would mention and show us stuff. So I think this is more something where you got to be hyped about what it entails.
Instead of what you see.
Yeah, than what you see from, like, you know, oh, okay, there's the torch is larger, or oh no, they got rid of the pig. Like, I don't know, I feel like that's not really the point of the engine rework. Oh no, did they get rid of the pig? Sag?
I'll say what I felt like it was. Like with like the branches, for example. Like, so for people who don't know, the branches in Legacy Engine are like really thin branches, and then in this new shot, they're just big blocks. Now, some people say, oh, they just haven't coded them in yet. But think about like the magnitude, or like the way that someone looking at that without the context that they haven't added it, or they are going to add it in the future, is going to magnify how much of a thing that is, how big of a deal that is. Whereas like it may have only took like and I'm guessing here, maybe a day or a few hours for a dev to have coded that into the new engine. This footage feels like the first time we've got something from Hytale that isn't like perfect, like stellar, like where there is some things where I'm like, maybe they could have like worked a little bit harder to get the comparison to be like more one-to-one in terms of those small things, because they are small. Like you said, the pig being there, the pig not being there, it doesn't matter. But at the same time, there is a bunch of people that like for some reason now think there are no pigs in Hytale. Like those small details, Hytale's usually really good at getting that, but like it seems like this one was a bit of a miss to me.
This blog post treats us like we're very intelligent, and we might be in this call, but most people, in my opinion, are pretty stupid in general.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Well, if you read the technical explainer and understood it, then you must be pretty.
They mention it in the blog too, where you might not be able to see the differences between the two engines to an untrained eye. And I kind of want to go to Fezzy for this. What are your thoughts on the differences between the engine, and do you think it's a good idea to showcase this version?
Well, here's the thing. It's actually, for me, really hard to walk away with any opinions at all. When this first came out and we were talking about it and everybody was kind of reacting to it, I kind of went back and forth. I was like, well, you know, it's cool. Obviously, I love these guys. That back end context I have in my brain of all of that everyone was just discussing, like the technical explainers. We know what's going on generally with the game. And so, like, yeah, you know, I think that it's fine that they did this from the perspective of myself, somebody that's been riding this train for the last 5 years. But it's not that I'm like questioning why they did it or anything like that. I'm not not to throw any disrespect or anything like that. But I almost wonder, like, I'd love to know the mentality as to why they even put this new engine section in this blog post. Because from the exterior perspective of, like, I don't have the last 5 years of history in my brain, and I don't have any of that. Like Connor said, it looks like the torches are really big for some reason. There's a couple graphical issues in the.
It looks like they made no progress.
It looks like, well, no, it's not that it looks like they made no progress. It's just there's no illustrated progress. Well, yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is in the new engine, right? There's a couple little lighting bugs. The branches are gone. The torches are big. There is no pig.
But I feel like that's like kind of the thing.
But here's the thing. No. I said, I'm not complaining about that because I get why it is the way it is. But from the outside perspective, it looks rushed.
Like YouTube viewers won't get it.
Like I'll be honest. Like one of the words that popped into my head when I saw that, like, there's so much verbiage used here. There's a lot of explaining and passion, and that's good. But we just got a dolly shot of a 3D scene with no animation. I don't know. Like, nothing's going on. And like I said, I know that it is genuinely exciting because we are finally making our way into the new engine. But for the perspective of people outside of the niche, outside of the Hytale like circle, I'm almost wondering if it would have been a better idea to just take this section specifically. I actually really like the other stuff, specifically this engine section, and like kind of hold on to it for a little while and say, this is what we were working with in early 2024. And now here we are at the end of 2024, and we can see where they were and why it's paying off. But they didn't do that. We just got a couple screenshots, and I don't look, like I said, I love this stuff. I love it when we get the back end of like, we have this right now. This is what it looks like, and it's really exciting because we know that this they're going through that hybrid development period, which they do explain in the blog post. But you know, it felt rushed to me. It felt like we just need a 3D scene put together real quick. We don't have some of these features yet, so let's just get this dolly shot, and we'll explain to everybody, you know, that this is an exciting thing, and we'll push it out. And you know, I think that's fine. I'm not, you know, I don't have any quarrels with that mentality. Or if they even have it, that's an assumption. But I almost wonder if it would have been a better idea, because like we said, there's a lot of people that are kind of calling mid about this blog post all over the internet, which I think is kind of unfair. It is. But people have their opinions, and people are going to voice them. And I can see where they have that opinion, because the word rushed popped into my head when I saw this, in a way.
Yeah,
because we know what they've...
Maybe...
Sorry, go for it. Sorry.
I guess a thought of mine with this is that maybe rushed isn't the worst word, because like the dev time isn't what we're calling rushed. I think the blog itself seems rushed.
The blog, it's got nothing to do with the with like Hytale
they're not advocating for themselves. Because like a good example I thought of when you were talking was like, it's pretty easy to set up a 3D scene with like Unity or whatever, and then show it off as if, oh, I have this game, right? And it's got chests, it's got a cave, it's got torches, pigs. But like, the difference between just a 3D scene in Unity and like a whole game you made, and that's just a screenshot from the game, and everything has mechanics and functionality. Well, that's the thing.
And moves, when people heard the word on Twitter specifically, the word gameplay, we thought we'd get what the word is. Gameplay.
We've had really cool gameplay clips before. That's why we've had so much
like we thought we would see the game playing, because it's gameplay, but it's not.
My question.
I think it would have been more personally. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Though. How do you depict gameplay? Like, or like, how do you depict the engine as gameplay? When like the engine,
if it's not done, you don't.
I guess you've got footage and then gameplay, right? Like,
this is like, footage.
This dolly shot feels more to me like, you know how in game trailers you'll see in-game engine footage or in-engine footage. That's what this feels like to me. It doesn't feel like gameplay, because I don't think it is. I wouldn't be surprised if the engine isn't even capable of having like a game be played right now, which is fine. But you know, that's the thing. When people hear the word gameplay, they expect the game to be playing. But this is a static.
You know the old shot where it's just the character walking through the field,
just running around in the grass.
Running around the grass. I think if they did something like that,
could be where it is
literally
now.
that.
Even the illusion of gameplay is more powerful than
that, right? Like, I understand from an external perspective, seeing something other than just like a rendered screenshot / little scene would have been great. But I think the point that Hypixel Studios is trying to make here just is the fact that they've come to a point where the new engine is equal, or and quickly improving, hopefully, than what the last was. And they finally come to that point where now they're ready to begin moving stuff over and beginning developing properly on a new one. I don't think it's necessarily to say that the engine is done, nor that it's amazing yet. It's hey, we're now at a state where, we can consider this equal to the legacy, and
they said by the end of the year.
Well, that's the thing, right? I don't disagree with you. I don't at all. I don't disagree with you at all. And like I said, with that context of being somebody in the community, I love this stuff. But from the outside perspective, like we're talking about, the branches are gone. There's no mob. There's no animation.
People are definitely
it's like compare this to like the goblin
it's like
image,
people,
like the goblin video where they're fighting goblins and stuff. Compare that to this shot, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, like anything we got in the Arcane
from the outside, right?
Arcane 2021 trailer, that is miles ahead of what this footage is.
Yeah, and it looked like a game.
It must be weird though, because obviously, like
a game, or at least
we get the technicals of this. it's like on a YouTube video, I'll be like hyping about this new footage and I'll be like, oh my God, we finally got it. And people like to the untrained eye, like they say in the blog post, they're going to be thinking I'm actually crazy. Like they think that I'm getting hyped over the fact that
100%.
because they're like, dude, you've been showing us like PvP combat clips and everything, and now you're showing us a forest and you're getting hype. But like we know that that's like the problem, right?
Right. I think a big issue is the difference between like catering to the core community or anyone that's even like adjacent to Hytale that just kind of wants to know what the update is. And that's exactly what this blog post does. It's like, hey, we told you we're making this engine. This is what it is. It's not looking good, but we're happy to show it to you just to show that we're working on it. But the issue is when you post a blog post like this, obviously we're all going to post on Twitter and social media and everything.
It goes everywhere.
It's going to spread to an outside audience regardless of if they want to or not. And that
without
outside
context.
audience, it's without context. For example,
just the clip.
my tweet I think has over 1,000 likes. It has close to the same amount of views as the blog post tweet itself for that single screenshot, and that screenshot doesn't have any context. It just says new engine, and then people are going to see that. Every retweet and reply is just like, oh, it's just a Minecraft texture pack. But it's not
like the Hytale news stuff recently.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like
they showed 4-year-old footage. It went viral on Twitter for a day.
And so, not in a good way.
Exactly. And so I kind of feel bad in that sense because like it's not really meant for that broad audience to see it without context, without this giant paragraph being like, it's like to the untrained eye, you can't really see it, but these are the differences we're working on. And so that's kind of the difficulties. I'm never going to complain about a blog post like this because I'm obviously part of the circle, but I just feel bad whenever, I keep seeing the thing I love getting shit on because there's no context, there's nothing. And let's be honest, it doesn't really look that good. And I know someone said yesterday that like going back to the scene they chose, they didn't really choose that interesting of a scene, and they probably did that on purpose because a lot of things might not be ready, but there's nothing unique to Hytale about it. Someone said that, and like I agree, everything in this could technically be a Minecraft texture pack or a tiny mod, but there's nothing they could have used vertical slabs. They could have used anything.
I like that it looks like Hytale though, right? Like if you took a base engine and showed someone what just a white world is, like showed them how they've got to this new engine, where like they've literally had to recreate what their game looked like in this engine. That's great, and it does look like Hytale. Just isn't an interesting shot of Hytale that we'd come to expect. Like
there's one quick unrelated comment. I'm staring this. You called it a dolly shot where it's zooming out, Fezzy?
Yes.
I'm looking at like the little flower things that are pink, and it's like, okay, there's like 3D models there. It's square, whatever. There's the little rocks. And then you have I hate these like cross PNGs. I hate them so much.
Bushes. Yeah. I mean,
do not put that in release. Please, I am begging.
It was in the legacy engine too. I think we're gonna have to face those cross PNGs.
They've shown they can do it with the other ones. Don't do it with the berries, please. If you have to with the branches and the grass, that's understandable.
3D berries, please. No, yeah. Here's the thing. I agree I agree. I think that ultimately, in my personal opinion, it's too early. I think that we could have gone a little while before we saw in-engine footage, because while we understand, or maybe put it in like a postcard or like a tweet, something that's not as official as like a blog post where the community's going to dissect it apart frame by frame, inch by inch. You found the third torch, which is a miracle.
Right.
Like, these things are going to happen to blog posts, and I don't know. It's just, I think that the trigger might have been pulled a little early on this one, because
that's kind of like more a flaw of the current community, though, that like a lot of people
are stuck in a weird situation.
I don't think that's a flaw of the current community. I think that's just what people do.
It's also just the situation we're in. Like we can only interact with the things we're given, and if we're giving nothing for 2 months, and then they give us a tiny tweet being like, oh, by the way, this tiny thing might or might not, like the tiniest speculation thing, we're gonna claw at that and make it as big as possible.
Hype does. That's what Hype does, and this game has been sitting this game has been simmering for like over half a decade.
There's a new Ask Hytale, and Chris just tweeted at me or messaged me.
All right. 2 seconds though. Like we've been waiting for the game for so long now, and we've had so many of these trip ups where we got too excited over something. You'd think this time we wouldn't have got so excited about it. So I feel like the team may have slightly messed up here by sort of giving in to us a little bit, where we've been like, oh, it's engine question mark gameplay, and then the second that they've said something, we've gone, yep, let's get hype, let's do it. And we've done the whole thing that we always do. But like, we're at that point now where we are very careful with what we interpret. So I feel like the team may have messed up a little bit in giving us too much to get excited about.
I think the word gameplay is problematic.
Like,
I think the problematic thing there is the word gameplay, because it just, in my opinion, it just wasn't. It just isn't gameplay.
They're in a weird situation because, like, sorry if I interrupted you, by the way.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
On the one end, they have, okay, there's not enough transparency, and we don't know what the hell is going on. And on the other end, it's like, they showed us what they're doing, and the normies don't like it. That's their problem right now. How do you appease both? I don't think you can.
Private blog posts. Private blog posts.
You can't appease both. I think the best thing you can do is just put your best foot forward, which I don't feel like they did here. No. Not that, like, which isn't anything horrible. Hypixel's going to keep saying
in that
section specifically. That's right. Yeah. Under the disclaimer that all of this that I've been saying is about the engine section. Yes. I think they pulled the trigger a little too early on the engine section. Here's the thing. I would have liked this to be in the what is it going to be, like end of year sometime? I'm assuming December, somewhere around there. If we get another blog post, I would have liked this to be in there, so they show this is where we were, 5 months ago. Here we are now.
Yeah,
take a look at how much progress
apples
we've made.
to apples and then oranges to oranges. Like, here's what the old engine was and then became, and here's what the new engine was and then became. And then, like, maybe show some of the, I mean, they talked about the various new systems. That the word is escaping me right now.
It kind of feels like we're seeing a half-finished painting, and it's fine seeing a half-finished painting as long as you have reference for where the painting's going sitting next to it, right? Like, you have okay, I see where we were, but oh my God, look at where we're headed. Like, let's say we get that blog post and we start seeing some real stuff come out of this. Like, we see the branches come back.
I think they could have. This section probably would have benefited a lot from showcasing how interactable the environment is. Like, give examples of, okay, so in the old engine, you couldn't move the chest with an inventory still in it. In the new engine, I'm not sure if this is speculation.
Yeah.
This is example,
right.
much. But let's say
what do you
in
know?
the new engine, you can push the chest and it still has its inventory. Probably not, but example, right? Like, people wouldn't know that, but if you show them something like that, then it's like, okay, there's something here actually. Like, maybe the functionality of, okay, you can't just place a torch, but you can also pick it back up again and have that lighting follow you like it did in the trailer. And then maybe be able to put it in like those things on the wall, like a torch holder. And like, you'd be able to click it in and then out again, or light a torch with another torch. Like, show mechanically what the new engine's capable of instead of just how pretty it is. I think that's really the issue here.
Yeah, because
like, the engine is all about functionality.
The main thing they went into with the last technical blog post is like, this new engine is going to give us performance buffs. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was really the main thing. The other, big thing that they didn't really talk about is cross-platform. And there were some confirmations of what devices they're on. But, kind of like you said, if you're rebuilding this engine for optimization and performance, what are the really cool things?
What are the gains?
Exactly.
What are we as the audience getting out of all of this work you're putting in?
Yeah,
that's what people are looking for.
I want footage of the new engine.
Or even if it's performance,
spawn it at a mountaintop and see like I'm 3 miles in every direction.
Exactly.
Like,
show us the performance difference. Show us, with one machine they're getting 100 FPS, and with a new one, with the new engine, same scene, it is 140 FPS now. Or render distance, all of that. Show us something that the engine can do.
Be like so definitive for like viewers and stuff.
Yeah,
it would be
visually, like, it's not that different, but like being able to show us specs or performance stuff or mechanic differences, like anything.
Let me put it to you this way, right?
I feel like something like that this early on would still be almost a bit insulting to people that watch. Like, this, and, like, I don't know. I feel like it would cause underwhelmingness. No, hold on. Like, hearing like 120 FPS to 140 FPS difference, and people are like, "That's what took 5 years." Like, people would be pissed off.
I mean,
like,
but if it was a list of 1,000 of those little tweaks, then okay, maybe it's
sure. But like, here's the thing, right? People are gonna be pissed off regardless. People are entitled to thinking the game is gonna be done. And this is once again going back to that thing I said ages ago, which is like, if you're kind of just open-minded that you're, in for the ride and not expecting any release date or anytime soon at least. Like, it's like, all right, let them cook. Let them take their time. You kind of have an open mind where you understand this is still work in progress. there's still a lot of stuff that's subject to change. But they actually multiple times say, like, during this, like, at every stage in this blog post, they pretty much, like, mention that, like, what you see is probably not what's gonna, like, be a final, like, product upon release. Heck, something we're about to discuss a bit later, which we're gonna get into, is like the scarak thing, which, you know, I've like looked more into the blog post and I've kind of changed my mind on it, and that's something we'll talk about then. But like, once again, I don't know. I feel like once again, a lot of this comes down to us hyperfixating, and that's something the audience and the you know, community's gonna do. But this is such a small, I guess, number of people that have just been here since that announcement back in 2018. So what they imagine of a game is an indie game that was made by 30 people as a, almost like a vertical slice for a trailer. What is really going to come out is something that is completely different. Heck, the entire scale of the game has changed. So, I don't know. Once again, I feel like a lot of it comes out of entitlement, and that's just like my stance on it. I feel like it's just easier to have like an open mind and like understand. They're just showing that the engine is like starting to become capable to stand on its own and be what they fully develop in soon, and that's their point. That's what they want. They're not trying to be.
I will say
that's valid. That's valid.
I like they gave us clarification. Like they gave us clarification on the timeline of that engine as well. It's like, we know that this isn't up to par right now, but our literal end of year milestone for the entire company is to get it up to par.
Exactly.
Is to get it to where you guys are expecting. And then, like 30 said earlier, at that point they can just churn out, you know, assets, animations, different things. All they really need is 2 or 3 days of doing that to then have an entire new clip to show us, or an entire new postcard, right?
They did mention,
I guess that point,
they did mention in the blog post too that things are going to happen with a snowball effect. Now things are going exponential, and that's because the difficult part of the base game is done, and now they can just work, you know, checklist. Go ding, ding, ding. You know, all of these things, smaller things that are done because you have the groundwork already done. And I think that is super exciting because they've said on Twitter, John reassured, we didn't mention it in the blog, but we are still on track. Every deadline has been hit, which is really good to know. Whatever their internal target is, they're still on track for it. There's nothing that's, you know, been a setback. I know there's been some job openings that have kind of hindered different things, but it's not affecting them in terms of deadlines and targets. So that's super reassuring. And I think we're going to be able to see something very interesting in the winter blog, because they state that once the winter goals or whatever they guidelines have been met, it's going to be the most playable version of Hytale to date.
So do you think that means in December we'll get a lot of stuff, or just a little bit of stuff, and then next year we'll get all the good stuff? Like,
I think it means,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, by the way.
I think it means we're going to get a lot of stuff, because if it's more playable than anything we've seen in the legacy engine, what is the excuse not to show us anything? If they were showing us things with the legacy engine that was less playable than it's going to be in the winter, you know? What is the excuse then? I'm curious.
Yeah. Sorry, Fezzi, I don't know if I can.
No. So we kind of blasted past it before I could interject before, but when we were talking about, when 30 was talking about, like, let's say they showed off the example of like a crazy render distance or something. A little can go a long way because there, you know, I'm sure you all have at least seen it go, you know, fly up your timelines at some point, but there was a mod that was semi-recently released called the Horizons mod for Minecraft. All it did was, well, you know, I'm no technical expert, but I'm assuming all it did was it added like LOD, and you can see way further out. You want to know what videos with hundreds of thousands, in cases sometimes millions of views said? Minecraft is all new. This is the greatest thing ever made. This is insane. When all it did was, it was just like, oh, the render distance is visible now. Like,
people extrapolate their expectations. Like, if you see one good thing that is like, oh, this is like the best mob I've ever seen, then you're thinking every mob is that good. So like, if they're able to like seed that stuff in like, really smart ways, that could work, right?
Like, you know, but a little can go, like, for example, when that mod came out, it was like Minecraft unlocked a whole new ability within itself. That's what an engine does. That's what like the underlying tech being improved accomplishes. Is this thing we've never seen this before, because it's all just been a layer of fog and the render distance cuts off. There isn't even, I don't even think, an LOD system in Minecraft. There's a simulated distance, but like all of a sudden we have this new thing, you know, and like we said, the performance is a big pin in this engine. Like that's a big thing for it. render distance would have been good. Anything, you know, like I don't know. I
want to see how many mobs you can load into the
you can load in,
like,
and how at what detriment to the frame rate, right? Like server performance. Minecraft server performance is notoriously.
I really, you know, would be an amazing video for them to just show if they have we know they have explosives in the game, the viral 1000 TNT explosions.
Yeah.
Put a video of that in the blog post. You know how viral that's gonna go?
Minecraft server performance is notoriously terrible. So, like for example, it only runs at 20 tick, which is pretty pitifully slow, and it doesn't even maintain that.
Players.
Yeah, what is 100 players in a Hypixel Skyblock? If you have 100 players in one of the main hubs, congratulations, you have a horrible experience because that's just Minecraft's architecture getting pushed to its limits. What happens when there's 100 players sitting in a lobby in Hytale?
I mean, they did show a shot like that.
They did show a shot like that with the big
in the trailer.
It almost looked like the walls.
Yeah,
big game mode.
It was like a top-down video,
which is part of why the expectations for this blog post has been so big, because we've seen amazing things that this game has done before. We've seen the scene with like 100 people fighting in an arena, and we're like, dude, that looks smooth as hell. Like, you know, I can see why people are frustrated with this, but I do think that, you know, like Red said, it is entitlement at the end of the day. People want their game to be really good, and they want to have good news about it all the time, and they get upset when that isn't the case. But I also do think that, in my opinion, I would have liked to see something like this in a more comprehensive blog post about the engine more further down the line. So
and like I said before, there's a huge disconnect in what we see and what's actually happening. I'll use the example of a YouTube video. Pretty much any creative process works this way, where it's like, let's say I make a video, it takes 300 hours of footage to make and 20 hours of polishing and making it into a video. If you just saw like the 3 hours of footage from that 300 hours of playing as a product, you'd think, wow, this is a pretty crappy video.
I mean, a great example is there have been times where I've been in the middle of making a thumbnail in 30 Cs, and he's like, this is not going to work. And I'm like, it's not done yet. the thumbnail isn't together, and then we work.
Sometimes does work.
It sometimes turns out to work, and because we were seeing it before the painting's done. The painting isn't done yet, and I think that's the mood we're getting.
And progress is not linear at all. It's like a download bar. Like it'll shoot forward a little bit and then creep by and then shoot forward. Like you just have.
Sometimes it goes back.
Yeah. But I mean, the last 10% of work could seem like 90% of the work. We just really, if you're not on the dev team looking at the files, like seeing where they're at, like we can always guess, but like I don't know.
Like
there's just so much we can't see.
That, though, do you think there's anything they have shown us where they wanted the game to be able to do that, but it wasn't able to do it when they showed us, and they had to like.
I think most of what we've seen has been that. Probably.
Like some
even that stuff, because there's so many things that people are like, oh well, they were able to do it in the trailer, so why is it not done now? It's like, well, did they do it? Like, was it possible to do that in the game in the trailer? Or
I've had the opinion that every bit of footage we've seen has been a vertical slice.
Well,
that isn't.
Right. I think there's a difference between what we see and what we interpret, right? Like when I saw the blog post with that scene of like the mine shaft where it's going down, I'm thinking there's going to be pulleys. There's a rope. You can pull the platform up. And I don't remember which staff member replied to my tweet. They're like, no, we don't have multi-platform structures yet. Like at that point, that was years ago. But like, that's an example, right? Like you would see that and think, oh, okay, so there's a moving mine shaft. There's like a gondola or whatever. And there isn't. But, well, there is. It just doesn't do anything. It's built into the environment. So I don't know. Speculation could play a big part in what we think the game can do. Like there could be several mechanics that in our heads have been like guaranteed this whole time, and they're not. You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, on the note of speculation, we've turned 4 paragraphs into an entire hour of discussion.
I was about to say, if there's any other comments on the engine that we want to get out before we go into creator outreach, because I know there's some conversation to be had there before we go into the scarak.
It's gonna be like a
my closing comment
podcast.
is like my closing comment is that keep going, awesome. Yep.
Yeah,
keep going. Great.
At the end of the day, this is the first stuff we've ever seen in the new engine. So technically, this is the first stuff we've ever seen of Hytale.
Yeah,
like
you're right. Actually,
actual Hytale.
First 12 seconds of actual Hytale. So it's good. It's good.
This chest dolly shot is our first Hytale footage, everybody.
Yeah.
Congratulations, we made it.
People are making fun of it, but it is like pre-alpha, and I can't wait to see what
the launch
what the
trailer
actual
starts
is.
with that footage. Imagine.
You know what? That would be so funny. Actually, it would be so
keeps
funny that if
zooming out
the
over like
it'd
4
be so
minutes.
funny that if this was the start of the next trailer we got, but it was like alive, like there was stuff moving around in the cave. That would be clever. That would be very clever.
Oh, that would be pretty
wait,
smart.
that actually
Yeah,
be
like
super
a
It's the
rabbit
scene
running
we
by,
just got
maybe,
this
like,
scene, but like completed. Like this is what the game looks like.
But like
now, it's
RTX
alive.
on.
RTX on. That would be super clever.
When a cat jumps out of the chest or something.
The pig is back. The pig is
A
back in
player
the
turns.
trailer.
No, the pig is sitting there, and then it turns into a player because the engine could do that.
Genius,
Yeah,
genius.
Oh
what
well,
I'm
we
saying.
just figured out what the next trailer
That's
is.
it.
I think
Hey,
we want to reach.
If any Hytale devs are watching, please, we need that, please.
We want to go on to creator outreach because they say they
Yes.
are reaching out. They have been reaching out to a bunch of creators in what I assume different, categories, whether it be model makers, devs, YouTubers, maybe even. I can confirm. I don't know if I'm allowed to not confirm. I have not been reached out with, but
I think you're allowed to.
I haven't either.
I think you're allowed to confirm if you haven't.
well, maybe I have been
allowed to say
confirmed, but
that
I'm
I
not
haven't
allowed
been
to say that I have, and so I'm lying. It's I'm playing mind games right here. But they've been reaching out to creators to ask for feedback. Interesting stuff. What kind of things are they asking out? Asking people out? Yeah, losing my words here.
So
I feel
I have
like
some. Which one?
Go
was
for
it?
it.
Okay,
You
so
go crazy.
my thoughts on this, I'm not going to tell whether or not I'm a part of this group of creators, but what I will say is the fact that they are reaching out to creators is a huge hint, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
I agree.
because creators are not known for being patient people. I'm just saying. We're not. So either they've made a mistake or they're expecting release decently soon. Otherwise, why would they be reaching out to creators if the creators aren't being given tools to create with?
Yeah, because
Right.
they've said
I
that
feel
too.
like-
They've said that the creator tools are going to be handed out before the game or any of the beta because that needs to be tested rigorously, and the majority, like the big public, isn't a creator. They don't know how to use the model maker. They won't know how to make mods or whatever they're going to be able to do. So they have to get that group and get that testing out of the way. And if they're already testing, how far along are we?
I know.
I also think there's a difference between a creator and a traditional influencer.
Yeah,
So I think that
100%.
like it's a case of like they're probably bringing in specialized talent for different areas of
what I was
creativity, right?
thinking.
So they're getting like artists' opinions, they're getting 3D modelers' opinions, but then at the same time, if they're bringing in like any influencers, TikTokers, YouTubers, gamers, whatever, it's probably to ask like, hey, what content would you make?
Yeah,
Or
there's
what
valuable
system in the
insight coming from
marketplace would help
all
you.
directions.
Like, yeah.
I mean,
How would
like-
you play with your audience on a
They-
server, stuff like that?
They
Like,
do say in the text that they're bringing people to discuss their histories, probably with creating stuff, their
Mhm.
difficulties they've encountered, probably with creating stuff, and what their
Yep.
expectations are for Hytale. So, yeah, they go on to say the tools. So I do agree with Connor. This is probably more geared towards, like, I want to say creatives.
Yes,
like people
that's a good
Yeah.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people that are like programming, developing, model making,
Industry
music,
people.
art.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, we're all part of an industry. I don't.
Well, I mean, yeah,
think-
technically.
I feel like there's content creators and creatives, and creatives is like that larger framework.
Yeah.
And once again, like the whole motto or mission statement of Hypixel Studios is to empower the creative,
Mhm.
creator. So I'm just assuming that it's more broad than maybe some people think. I mean, they do mention Quebec Corner in here, so
Yeah, I was gonna mention that Connor is one of the creators
Yeah,
that
he's-
has been outreached. You have met the devs, you have talked to
Yeah.
the devs, and I assume that is part of the outreach that they're talking about with the creator. Is like you were the YouTuber and the community member that they reached out for, and you did the presentation about what Hytale means to the community, and that's probably like one of the checklists where like, okay, for creators and for community, what does Hytale mean for them, and how can we do that? The same way they're probably asking artists, like, how does, you know, how do these different tools empower the creator?
Yeah.
It's just a different measurement.
And I'm just gonna read this.
I agree with that.
I'm just gonna read this statement from the blog post itself. As we progress through 2024, we will continue to bring more creators into the fold as we work to lay the foundation for our future creator programs. Our future creator programs, plural. So they are probably regarding multiple avenues once again. So it's not one direct thing. There's multiple, and that could entail all different paths of creatives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I guess they've got two avenues as well to look at. They've got what they're going to be doing for the creatives in the ecosystem after launch, but then they're probably going through this whole other thing of like, oh, but before launch, how do we even get those people's opinions and get them interested in the game as well?
How do we make them want
it'll be
to
interesting
create?
to see how they pivot. Yeah, like how do they pivot from getting all of this advice to then going off and like literally creating that baseline for the economy that is then all these different like categories of talent all then have their own like thousands of people working on in the engine and stuff. That would be really cool.
I do have one question for y'all, because this is literally the first line that Buddhacat says here. From various backgrounds and platform experiences. So how far and wide do you think this range of creatives goes?
Well, the
Professional
platform,
Nintendo Switch players.
yeah,
That's right.
That is part of it.
Well,
I think
like, I
with
mean,
platform,
like,
you have a bunch
it
of
is
mobile creators.
cross-platform, so
You need to make sure that, like, I don't know if they're gonna have these creative tools on the mobile platforms, because it's and console as well. It's probably a lot more difficult. But assuming they have at least some version of it, they need to make sure that the people native to these platforms feel comfortable with them, know you know, what the platform needs to be able to do that. Because I mean, this is an assumption, but I assume most of the devs are PC native gamers. A lot of might be console gamers, but I assume a majority are PC gamers, and so they're gonna
place a lot on Nintendo Switch.
They're gonna build the game mainly to be native towards PC, but they want to make sure, because they're doing this cross-platform thing, to make sure that all these other platforms are cared for as well.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think.
All right.
I think all platforms are going to be prioritized. I think they should be, including with the editing tools. For example, like places like India exist, where
mobile
here in the
audience.
States. Here in the States, it's very common for people to come home to their computer and be, you know, computing on their computer.
Or
but
console.
people love their phones there.
Yeah.
Like, love cell phones.
China as well.
And
China's big mobile.
Exactly. And like, not having the creative tools on mobile would be a massive L, because then that entire category of fan would have an extra step to get to making stuff. So
that's interesting.
And it's also worth noting, at least with other games that are multi-platform, usually console and mobile is far superior to the amount of people on, you know, console, PC, or PC. Yeah.
Right there.
So
I think well, here's the thing, right?
I think
on the
they should
note,
prioritize it all. Like, phones are powerful enough that we're not going to nerf the PC version of the game. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with what you're saying, but I also know that in the precedent that this kind of thing has been done, like Roblox, like Fortnite, Roblox doesn't do that. Roblox, I'm pretty sure you have to have a specific application that is designed, and it's also, I believe, only present on PC to make the experience in Roblox, to make experiences
to
in
do
Roblox.
the studio,
Fortnite,
that is only application.
Fortnite, I think, is different, though. I think Fortnite, you make the experience in-game, and then you can publish it. I don't know. I've never looked into it that much, but
I think it's
Fortnite
actually.
Is there actually like a specific application?
I'm just basing it off a friend that did it, and I'm pretty sure it's a mixture. I think it's mostly PC though.
I think there is like a Fortnite Unreal or something like that. Fortnite engine.
Yeah, it's Fortnite.
Oh, there. Yeah, you know what? You're right. There is.
Yeah.
So, and I think there's a reason for that. I don't think it's because Epic doesn't want more market share. I think it's because getting that kind of specialized software, not only just like on mobile so it runs, but so you can interface with it on a touch screen, you know, so you can, it's hard. And I would not expect Hytale to have the creative tools specifically like the specialized ones, the ones that you make in 3D models and stuff like that, I would not expect that to be on anything other than a PC personally. But I also think.
Okay, go on.
No, you can go if you want.
I was just gonna interject and say, even though maybe not necessarily their creative set will use mobile platforms to make stuff, they still have a certain perspective on what works and appeals to that audience and demographic for.
No, I think that that in a just world, the creative tools do exist on every platform, but the logistics of making a specialized piece of software for a touchscreen.
So, alternative perspective, technology is getting better every day, and doing something like that gets easier every day. So there is that.
A touchscreen hasn't changed, though.
The
limitations of a touchscreen haven't changed.
I want to bring this into
but
conversation.
You have things like the backbone that you could use.
Well, yeah, but then that's a different kind of, like you said.
I think it should be
filters.
I think it should be possible on all platforms, but yes, the amount or like how easy it is to do things, I think should be leveraged with something like a PC.
I have something to interject. The scope of the game, making something just for mobile and console. Is this something even important for the launch of the game, or is that something they can worry about, you know, a year or two later, being like, okay, we finally added console or mobile addition for creator tools? I don't think it's important for launch.
Oh, I don't think no, yeah, I agree. I don't think that the tools are I think that the version of the games should be heavily prioritized 100%. For launch. But the tools, no, I don't think so.
It does raise the question, though, as well, of, and I don't want to go into a free-to-play, pay-to-play debate here at all, but that whole idea of, right, like, if I have the game on mobile, but I want to mod it, do I then have to buy the game for PC, or is it going to be like, once I buy it, is it on all platforms? That's not really going to work out, and then are the tools going to be free? Is the game going to be paid, or is the tools just going to come free to everyone with the game? Like, all of that is then, like, comes into it as well.
Halo answered this question. Halo 5, which is weird.
Okay.
So Halo 5 has you know, Halos historically have their own little Forge mode and all of that. Well, they made a much more comprehensive version of Forge that if you log into your Microsoft or Xbox account with, you can just log into it on the PC and you just basically have a little Halo 5 on your PC, even though Halo 5 isn't available on PC, specifically for the creative tools. You just basically log in with the same account you have on the Xbox platform. So they could do it that way. I think that that's a problem that's solvable. I think that you can have multiple things like that, because I would assume we would at least need like either a Riot Games account or a Hytale account, and you could just use that on a piece of software.
Is there anything other that we need to discuss about creator outreach? I think we mentioned.
I have an interesting perspective on it.
Go for it.
I think, you know, like 30 when he first was talking about the creator outreach beginning. Well, I actually think that might be a reason why it's going to take longer, not sooner, because we're getting, just like the engine, we're getting right now we're starting with creator outreach, which means these creative pipelines, the influence they're going to have on them, all of that logistics hasn't started moving yet. Or if it has started, we're not that far along in, because they're still taking in ideas that haven't been implemented into softwares, into tools, which means, and you know, something to remember too, I would assume, like I said, you know, I said it earlier, I haven't been reached out to either, but I would assume that they're going to want some UGC content when Hytale releases. Like some servers people are running.
Yeah,
they need to launch with something that people have made. So that means we have to wait for the tools to be fully developed and for the people to then take those tools to some degree, use them on launch content that is UGC. And if we don't even have the tools yet, or if the tools are still being made and opinions are still being, if the design phase of the tools is still happening, I think we might be a little while out.
I actually,
because Hytale, one thing that we know is that they have a crazy bar for quality over there at Hytale. They had one of the most hyped games of the decade, ever.
Ever.
One of the most viewed game trailers ever, and they said we should cut it back.
Not good enough.
Not good enough. We need another like 5 years.
I think there's one thing in the blog though that disproves that, because you say they only started out, you know, this year or recently doing that. He says the first word since last year we've been reaching out. We don't know what since last year is.
I think that's early. I think even if they started last year, I think that's super early.
Another detail worth noting is from the start, they said that the tools they're using are what they're giving us. So there's a good chance that the tools are like near done because they've been using them.
Well, I guess it depends, right?
It's
like, how did they make that scene that we're looking at?
Oh yeah, obviously.
It's not like they haven't like not spoken to creators as well for like the last 5 years. Like we know the team are friends with like a bunch of
now it's
different
more
types of
official,
creatives and stuff, you know.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. I think there's an argument for both, but I think that there is a chance that this takes longer because if they're now just publicly saying, "Hey, we're bringing people in and we're getting ideas," it feels like we're early.
Very end. Yeah.
It feels early because here's the thing: is like I said, they have a bar for quality. They have a big one. They have a very high one. And that means that the UGC on launch, if there is going to be, is probably going to need to meet that bar. And I don't know. I think there's a lot of logistics that have to move for that to happen. I mean, obviously, there's a ton of them. An unfathomable amount of them for me.
I just don't see the task being as large as making the game itself.
I don't either.
Well, here's the thing. I see the engine and the creative tools, specifically the stuff that like everyone's supposed to use, like the creative tools anyone can pick up and start making things with, as kind of a different thing than just the engine. The engine is the game. The engine is the thing that makes the physics work, the thing that makes the animations play, the things that have the background systems working. But the creative tools are your interface to mess with those systems, which is an entirely different thing on its own. And if they're still taking opinions on how those tools should be made, I think, or how those tools could be better, because like you said, yeah, they've been making them.
I say yes and no, because I feel like a system that's made to be that user-friendly kind of has to be made that way from the start. Like, I don't think it's a thing
how else
that,
would the
like,
creators
a layer
be able
you
to
add on
inform
top.
them?
I don't know. It seems to me like it's fairly close.
And
in terms of like creator tools,
would these creator tools have been stunted by the legacy engine? I assume they're pretty much. I assume they're pretty similar in terms of like design, though.
The design philosophy, yeah, it's probably similar, but
I also don't think that like if a YouTuber or an artist or something came along and was like, oh, you need to deeply change this rooted core part of the entire game, they're gonna go, all right, we need to change everything. Like I feel like it is.
I agree.
They'll have got all of the big answers early on. Like they'll have established all of that.
I agree.
And now what they're probably doing is being like, here's some of our tools. What do you think? Like, how do we make them better? Like, we can't give feedback on something that doesn't exist. So there's got to be like some tangibility.
No, there's definitely something, but I mean, look at the engine snapshot we just got. Look, that's the state of the engine. So what's the state of the tools that have to interface?
They can still get feedback on the tools in Legacy Engine, right? Like they could bring someone into Legacy and say, "This is gonna be on the new engine exactly how you see it."
I know, but what I'm saying is the engine. This is what they had to show off for the engine. So the tools to interface with that engine, I assume, are way. Like, yeah, the design philosophy is there, but I mean, like we said, it's a different engine. It's a different tech that they have to now make that design philosophy work with. I think we're a little early, personally. That's just my opinion. I think we might be a little early in that phase, or maybe not early. I like you said, I agree that they've been planning this forever, and there's a whole lot of foresight, and they've probably had a lot of the tools, like you said, the hard answers were the hard questions were answered early. But
we're early in Red's timeline. That's. I mean, we're on the first day. We're on the first day.
I think we're early in that process, but it's not a long process.
I'm just saying this is one of those things that kind of makes me think 2026. I guess that's my opinion.
Well, we have a brand new scarak rework as well to talk about, and this got a lot of conversation, a lot of controversy, and a lot of love too. And I'm curious where everyone stands on this. I don't think we're gonna go through each and every concept art. I think we're gonna take the scarak rework as a whole and talk about it. If you're watching this and you haven't seen the scarak rework, I definitely recommend reading the blog post. Very insightful things about how their design philosophy about the scaraks. But we're going to talk about the scarak rework as a whole, and there's a lot of things that happen here. Connor was the first one to see the scarak rework, and everything that he saw, as far as I know, is shown to us. So he just had a sneak peek. We've kind of been able to prepare for the scarak rework, and now we're seeing the pictures and videos live. So I think, Connor, you're the most qualified right now to talk about the scarak rework. Give us your thoughts that you've already given to us in that one video.
Well, I'm uploading a video today. I'll give you some thoughts on what I've sort of brooded over, pardon the pun, but I feel like it's very clear that they've definitely wanted to take the Scaraks away from, they're just this like standard bug race that every like MMO or RPG has. So like that, I already like that, right? They're trying to differentiate it. They've changed some of the names from I think it's like Locust and Tank to now Guard and Scout. So they've got like these more almost like militarized or like more intelligent sort of naming system for them. I also think the way that they've redesigned them and everything, it says like, hey, we're something that's a bit smarter. We are an evolved species. We're not just these like prehistoric creature things that are just overgrown bugs. So I love that aspect of it. I think that the concept arts are really telling. But this is what really confused me about a lot of it. Obviously, they had to rework the Scaraks. So they went from having them in-game with mechanics to then, we're going to go back to the concept art phase. And that's interesting in itself because there's so much cool stuff in the concept art they showed. As I said, I know you said don't break down everything, and I'm not going to, but there is so many small details in each individual image where you're like, that is so cool. Like the way that they go about the blue goo, the fact that like there's giant like literally like skulls of giant Scaraks that they're like coming out of, and it's like all of that stuff opens my mind up again to wait, yeah, this is a really creative team. Like they, as soon as they put pen to paper, they make magic, right?
Yeah,
and so that stuff's all got me really, really excited. But I know certain people, you know, this has been a little bit of a back and forth. We spoke about it a little bit yesterday, but when the blog post dropped, but I know some people find the redesigns not exactly perfect. I personally like them. I think I'm a big fan of them, but I never did like the Scaraks originally. I always thought that they were just a bit like meh, like compared to like the Farons and the Quebecs and the Trorks, they just felt like even the Trorks to a certain extent feel a bit one note.
It's kind of just an
which I'm excited to learn more about. Yeah.
There's a
I hope they do
John
something as interesting with the Trorks.
There's a John Hendricks quote that I actually understand what he means now, with his previous thoughts being like, okay, the Scaraks used to be a kill on sight animal or faction, didn't really care much about them, I just wanted them gone, and now with the redesign he wants to learn more about them. He's intrigued about their design, their place in Orbis, and I completely agree. I read through the Scarak thing and I thought they were super interesting. I want to know about the goo. I want to know about the military system. I want to know why are they, you know, patrolling these different areas. What is, like you said, what is the big skeleton? I'm super interested in the Scaraks, and they've turned from something that I was like, I do not care for the Scaraks. I really don't. I didn't really care about their designs either, but now I think I've yet to see the other redesigns, but they're my favorite faction as of right now.
So I like the design of the old ones and the new ones for different reasons, but I will agree the old ones were a bit like generic. So like one thing that I said, like one thing I noticed immediately is I was like, wow, these kind of look like Breath of the Wild mobs a little bit, where there's like this animatedness. You could tell without even seeing the animations. Like you could tell the way it could move around in the environment. You see the bioluminescent eyes, you can imagine it like blinking, maybe turning its head sideways, like all the weird movements. I like it. I think it's gonna look really sick when it finally shows up in game. But one topic that hasn't been touched on yet is the fears of how high the contrast was and how bubbly the new ones are compared to the old ones. Like the old ones are very scrawny, skinny, kind of creepy. The new ones are kind of thicker, maybe a bit more pleasant to look at, I guess you could say. So like a concern that some people have been expressing, I'm on the fence about it. I'm not sure if I would call it. There's a word that I'm not sure if it's a good word for this, but like back in the day, there was a lot of talk about the kidification of video games, like making things like bubbly, round, high contrast, not really dark or deep themes. It's just made to be slop for the kids to play, right? And that's what we don't want Hytale to be. So seeing that high contrast in a way kind of scared some people. I personally think that I'd want to see it in the environment first, because what we saw is just renders.
100%.
So like, what's the lighting gonna do to that model? What about the particles in the air? Like, what does it look like immersed in its intended environment? Then I'll make a judgment on the contrast. But yeah, as a still image, I think it's a bit bright. I think more of like a coral color, kind of like what Myne did on Twitter.
I actually think there's an opportunity there, because you know, I have the same opinion that like it looks, you know, I made the joke that specifically the warrior looks kind of like a transformer.
Yeah,
in my
Bumblebee.
opinion. But Bumblebee. But here's the thing, right? There's another game that kind of did this, but it's a game that we don't have that opinion about, and it's Subnautica. Subnautica has a bubbly, cartoonish vibe
actually.
to it. It looks like
okay.
it
really
looks like
that.
a kid's game, but you want where it gets creepy is the sounds. It's the sound they make, the environment they're baked in. It's not really the art style that makes Subnautica creepy. It's almost the subversion of it. It's almost like you walk into it, it looks bubbly, it looks kind. You see a peeper as well, like you see peepers as one of the first things you encounter. It's soft, it's comfortable.
I should also draw the comparison. I don't know if we got access to editing here, but that image I just sent looks like it's from like Subnautica concept art.
It does.
Yeah,
and
a little bit.
I think that Hytale could use that, where it's like, yeah, these bugs. Because here's the thing, right? My only thing, I actually love everything about them, everything they've redone about them. The only thing that caught my eye was the soldier, but all of the rest of them I think look sick. And maybe they're a little more like, especially the little ones. They're very round and cuddly
big
looking.
eyes.
Big eyes, and you know they may overall the scaraks may overall look softer, but the concept art says a very different thing. Is this the first time we've seen gore in concept art?
Oh
Like
yeah,
gore.
let's talk about the gore. I think it's super
Oh.
interesting because this like is a major debunk of like, oh, it's childish. We see a scarak eating a foot. We see a scarak tearing a limb apart. That's not
I
childish.
think when we say childish as well, like I feel like there's a difference between, say, we're watching a horror movie or a thriller and there's like bugs in it, and you're like, oh my god, there are bugs, they're icky, they scare me. And then these new ones feel like if you had like a kid's sci-fi show, or maybe not a kid's sci-fi show, but a sci-fi show that's a bit more jolly and fun, and you've got like this kind of like alien bug race, like it's kind of running around, like it feels just a bit more like that. And I don't know if that's affecting our biases of being like, oh, that's for kids. But to your point as well, though, like think about like the worm scarak or like those big scaraks at the end of the image coming out with proper sound design from the shadows in a claustrophobic tunnel. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I definitely do have a lot to say about everything. One thing I will just easily like point out with like the whole high contrast warrior model that we saw. Like at first I was definitely on the fence about it myself. I mean, we were in a call for like multiple hours discussing that.
Like the whole day.
And a lot of people on
I ended
Twitter
up
were also
11.5 hours in there.
Yeah, holy frick. But like then like I feel like a lot of like one big thing that a lot of people are disregarding, which honestly I disregarded at first as well, but it's like once again Chris made the statement that it is not necessarily the model you'll see in game, but it's the hero as it, which means it's like a base template. Will be guiding development of these based on what you see above as a concept. And this is, like 30 was saying, it disregards like, you know, sounds, ambiance, lighting. So like, even though it's very bright right here, like for me, what I'm like thinking of it, like when I first saw it was like it on top of the desert, like just randomly like this like very neon guy or neon bug in the middle of the desert, which really is not really where they're at. They're like typically in the hive, and it's gonna be darker in there. It's gonna have a different type of like lighting to it. But then
they probably will be the lighting.
Yeah, they honestly, with like the glowing, they probably will.
100%.
Like doubling down
Also,
once again. Go on.
Well, I was gonna say with the lighting as well, you because we don't know the exact lighting, it could be that the skin on the outside is almost like camouflage, like you can't see them.
Exactly what I was thinking.
And honestly, I would actually, I would expect that because they're bugs that live in an environment.
You just see the glowing bits.
Like they're designed to blend into sand. That's how it works. That's
I think the brighter contrast is going to help even more with that camouflage because the sand is probably going to be bright. The sun is going to be out. We know that they're outside the hive sometimes. And the only way we're going to spot it is like some blue dots in the distance. We're like, oh, might not want to go over there. And then in the inside, the hive is probably the same brown color as their skin. And inside, there's no sun. The only thing you might bring is a torch, and then they just have the blue glowing. And so you step into the hive, everything's dark, and all of a sudden you hear like, and then you just see a wall of blue eyes. That's
No, I
scary.
feel like
Kind of
a
like
lot
that
of
that
people's-
scene Connor talked about in his video.
Yeah.
Like it could be so good.
No, for
And
sure.
honestly, oh sorry, I'm interrupting you. You keep going. You keep going.
Oh, you're all good. No, what I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of people's concerns about this, including mine at first, was like how we just have this like, you know, depiction of the man as a bug-like creature from, you know, legacy of the game, when it clearly has been like kind of emphasized that they are more alien-like, if anything.
Yeah.
One thing that I feel like is very, you know, important to point out is like even in like the old context of Scaraks, one very important thing about them was that they were like this crazy sophisticated empire that like enslaved other races like the Ferrants around them. I'm gonna be real, the old Scarak bug design did not give me that vibe.
Yep.
It didn't.
Yeah.
Like of that
No, you're right, you're right.
intelligent slave of the desert or enslavers of the desert. This kind of does what this reminds me of. I mentioned two sci-fi races. I mentioned Tau Empire from Warhammer just because of that beige design, but then also the Covenant from Halo.
Yeah, I was thinking about Halo as well.
They
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
enslave
yeah.
other species to kind of do their desire. So that's kind of what I got from these guys, from a lot of things. As for the kidification, I think it's a bit hard to tell because like Hytale's always kind of been not childish, but it's been cartoony in a lot of ways, right? From the get-go.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the Quebex as a poster board like character has
Hey.
always been cutesy.
Which is
What, am
why
I
we
wrong?
have
Am I wrong?
concerns.
Well, no. I think you're right. Actually, I
Yeah.
think what that is as well is like they realize with reputation they're gonna have
Yeah.
players that do want to side with the Scaraks. So making
Exactly.
some of them a little bit more endearing works. And I'm sure we're gonna get that the opposite way with the Quebecs. I really hope there's
An
like a
evil
super
Quebec.
ugly brute Quebec that just
Yeah.
makes you be like, I don't know if I should. Are they the good guys? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like. It would be
Like,
cool. It would be cool.
I really think it's more like we're just gonna polar opposites. If anything, we're gonna have the very cutesy vibes. And like Connor, if you turn around, you'll have the Edge magazine behind you. Have that scary, like, you know, I think it's a spider. Is it a scarak or a spider right there?
It is a scarak.
Got your
Yeah,
Scaraks.
like surely it won't be like that, but I'm assuming like the ambiance of, you know, you exploring a cave and then randomly, you know, the scares come out from, you know, hive nests, like swarms, is still gonna like freak you out in that moment. Probably even more so now because, you know, they're even scarier with like the high intellect and whatnot. They're not gonna be those brain dead bugs from Starship Trooper, that old cult classic movie.
And speaking of, oh, sorry.
No. But
I just had an intrusive thought with audio. Imagine if each little leg hitting the floor was a pitter patter. It's not like an MP3. It's like each little one.
Oh,
That'd
no.
be
sound.
insane.
See, now here's the thing: if they demonstrate that the
100
new,
of them.
here's the thing: if the engine ever demonstrates that it's capable
Yes,
of something like that, people
exactly.
would freak
That
out.
would be crazy.
You know?
Exactly.
People
That would be
would
a great way to
freak out.
showcase
Easier,
a new
though,
engine.
on top of that, imagine if, like, depending on how many there are around you, that like your screen actually begins to shake a little bit. Like,
Oh, yeah,
mimicking,
oh,
like
yeah.
the
Like
you know, the shake
vibrations?
of like the ground, like vibrating as a swarm is coming towards you. I don't think they'll do that, but imagine, like, I don't know. I think kidification of a game that is cartoony is hard to tell until we get the final product. But
It is.
part of the game is, you know, once again made for children. So to think that it was like gonna have like a very, you know,
Adult theme,
like
yeah.
adult theme is kind of, I don't know. Then
Oh
again,
no,
we
that's
just got
never the
concept art-
goal.
Yeah,
Like,
we just got concept art of a
yeah,
I think
I-
people
you
just
know.
don't want to feel like they're getting babysat when they play.
There
Yeah, I
are,
think there's a
you know?
difference between accessible and like 30 said being baby. There's a difference between. I think you can make it accessible. You can kind of have both.
There are some
I
comments.
still get scared at creepers, right? Like I still get scared. So I imagine
Man,
that-
I'm gonna call you out. Hold up.
Bro.
Creepers were only scary when you couldn't sprint. That was the only. And
Okay,
they were
okay,
the exact
okay.
same color as the grass.
But when
That
you
is
don't
the
see them
reason they were
coming,
scary.
when you don't see them coming, you just turn around from a chest and
Yeah.
they're just there. It is
Yeah.
still scary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
it
now
is.
you have
Imagine
a
having that
shield.
feeling with Scaraks. Like,
Sprinting.
Here's the thing. Well, I mean, to be fair, like creepers by their design are kind of freaky looking, but with this whole thing, like with the whole Scarak thing, like you guys are talking about, the old Scaraks to me felt like a mob. It felt like a game mob. It just felt like an enemy,
Yep.
like 30
I think
said
it
cannon
killed,
fodder.
yeah.
It felt like a game mob. But now, like, let's say there ever is something like a reputation system, or these guys actually go around doing things. They went from like a game mob to like a way more.
They
rich,
feel like a faction now. They feel
Like a
They,
faction.
they feel like a
Interesting
thing. They
faction.
feel
Yeah,
like an.
yeah.
they went from a game entity to their own entity. They went from like a game mob to a game system,
That's awesome.
like a more rich.
Like if you were in an MMO, like they used to be like one of those like cannon fodder mobs that you'd go and get a quest to kill like 10 of, and you would never see them again in any of the zones. Whereas like the redesigns feel like they are pivotal characters.
They are characters. They're part of the world now. They're not just mobs. And like with the concept art where you see a human working with them and they're friendly.
Yeah.
And you also see a screenshot where your foot's getting eaten. It means that you can it means you can get on their bad side. They have an opinion of you. Like they're a lot more alive now than they used to be, which I am so excited for, because if that's like a philosophy that's getting applied to all of them, like the Outlanders, like the Farons, like the Quebecs, that means this game is going to be ridiculous. Like that means this game is going to have so much depth in its.
They wouldn't even need a zone 4
in just zones 1 through 3, and we're going to get to that. I do want to touch on the kitification part, because there have been dev comments about this. There was a Noxy poll a long time ago being like, should Hytale have horror elements in it? Just straight up asking, and majority was yes. So they definitely understand that people want horror elements in it, even if it's not a horror game and it's maybe a child's game. There still need to be some horror elements, and they probably do want to include that. There was a dev, I don't know if I'm going to say their name, but someone reached out to them and they kind of said, yes, we understand the concerns with the vibrance of the colors, with the more cartoony look, but they reassured us that you do not need to be worried about the horror and the kitification, which just means to me they know things we don't, obviously, and there are some scary parts in Hytale. And this was a recent confirmation.
I think that I think there's a chance that the art style will just simply be subverted, like in Subnautica in certain cases.
Yeah,
you know, where it's like it's bubbly on the surface, but like it's the vibe switches. So I'm not really worried about it. You know, like an art style is one thing, but like being in the game, sinking into the environment, that's like when we really pull that opinion.
Yeah, let them cook. It's like,
let them cook, because they're cooking. Boy, they're cooking. I love what I'm seeing out of this scarak stuff. Like it's, you know, the engine thing had made me feel one way, but when I started reading into the scarak stuff, I was like, oh, okay. We're trying to make this world a world now. Like this isn't just like there are scaraks that exist here and there's a prefab that they sit in. This is a system. I'm really excited about.
And this goes to all of the factions. They've mentioned every single faction has been,
and each of them are probably going to have their own tendencies and how they behave towards you. Oh, I love it. I love stuff like that.
We know for a fact the Outlanders, the Goblins have all gotten redesigns. The Quebecs we've seen a little bit of. I don't think we've seen the full extent of what the Quebec redesign is. There's a lot of redesigns that we can be excited for. And I think this is a crazy claim, but I think with every single new faction, we're going to have a new favorite faction, because they're going to show us the new Outlanders and we're going to be like, oh my god, I love the Outlanders so much. And then they're going to show us the Farons. We're going to be like, oh my god, the Farons are the best faction. And then it's just going to keep going until we have all of them, and all of the factions are going to be our favorite factions at some point. I think that's really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, it changed the way I look at like where things are going, this scarak post. Because we really got like an insight on the, like, it's more than a mob, which is good.
It's more than a mob, and it means Zone 2 is going to be super, super in-depth with the scaraks, with the Farons that we haven't even seen, and that's just one zone. I mean, with the amount of scaraks lore that we've gotten and been teased.
This also introduces like the gameplay opportunity of what happens. How do they behave differently to each other? How do the different factions behave towards each other? Like, does a Faron and a scarak have a different relation than a scarak and a Quebec?
Exactly.
Like,
and can a race have multiple factions? Like, I'm sure that not every single Quebec's going to get along.
Yeah.
With each other, right?
I didn't even think
different
that,
groups,
to be honest.
dude. Oh man, it's gonna be crazy if that works. If that's what happens.
Are you talking about Quebec racism?
Yes.
I'm not talking.
Yes.
That is not what I'm
the birch Quebecs and the oak Quebecs.
No, hold on. Uno card. That is not what I'm getting.
The birch and the oak.
The birch and the oak. That's so funny.
Damn. Don't forget about the spruce.
And then there's just like the gray, there's like the orange scaraks, and then like one that are like slightly more orange.
Yeah, it's the desaturated scaraks and the saturated.
The desaturated versus the saturated scaraks.
No, wait, real quick. imagine if scaraks actually had like ant colony wars of like different like hives.
Here's something
so
that I
cool.
always wanted out of Hytale, because this is something I wanted out of Minecraft so bad, and I got out of some games like Stalker is a great example of this. Stalker exists with or without you. They have their own conflicts. Elite Dangerous is another example of this. Everybody, you're a part of it. You can get involved with it, but it's gonna happen with or without you. And I want to like walk to like into, is it Zone 2 that the Scaraks are gonna be present in?
Yes.
I want to walk into Zone 2, and I want to see them beefing with each other. And then I want to walk away, and if I come back, I want to see that conflict ended. And something,
Or you can pick a side. You could pick a side and fight with them.
Or you can pick a side and fight with them, or you cannot. You could just watch what happens. And they'll do their own thing. I hope that if Hytale like really does take advantage of the idea that like, because can you imagine, like, people have made viral videos about if Minecraft had like that living world, villagers talk to each other, like different villages talk to each other, and if you did something bad to one village, they're all going to warn each other about you because you're a sketchy person now. Or if you do one good, like if the world just responds and it works on its own, that'd be so good.
You gave me an idea for a really good example to back up what you were saying.
Sure.
Imagine you witness that fight. The two things fight. One of them defeats the other. One dies. In most video games, that mob is just there for you to loot. But like in a realistic situation, if there was a fight between two sentient beings and one of them killed the other, they'd probably take some stuff, right?
Like if I kill the bug truck and deprive them of what was in the bug truck, does that matter? That's what I want to know.
They better be mad and be looking for me, being like, okay, one of our sentries was taken out. We need to be on lookout now.
Like if I kill the bug truck and they don't get their bug shipment,
then
they respond?
in the future there might be more of them out searching for food because they have to.
Because
now
they
don't have as much food.
Like there's so much potential in a background system like that. So I hope it has it.
Which is probably why the factions can't be treated as, oh, every single member of this like specific creature is all on the same side. Like I think it'd have to be subgroups where it's like maybe location based, where it's like, okay, this is this village, this Quebec village talks to other villages, but they disagree in a few things.
I mean, we've seen Quebecs in different zones. We've seen them in Zone 3. So maybe the Quebec village in Zone 3 was exiled from Zone 1, and now they had to move into a new zone.
And now they're their own little system you can get involved in.
I don't think we'll see something as crazy as like games like Kenshi, RimWorld, Dwarf Fortress, where each like mob has like its own background, personality, behavior.
No, I'm not saying that.
But
I do think there'll be like variants of the factions.
Yeah, there could definitely be variants, or like how a specific camp or location. Like, I mean, Minecraft has had that a little bit with villages, but not a lot, which sucks. But like, I definitely think like they've already like kind of mentioned that a little bit, right? Even like ages ago, that like certain factions will like kind of proceed in different migrate time.
I feel like factions are formed with ideology, not necessarily like, oh,
okay, well, I don't think there's going to be politics.
Well, I'm not saying
well, actually, here's the thing, right? This game system has been built before. This game system has been made. There's a reason why I never stop talking about Elite Dangerous, because it works on a reputation system. Everybody is their own government, and they have the one goal of, we need to grow bigger and be healthy. We need good things to happen to us. Their politics are all stuff you can read into, but it doesn't actually really change a ton there. But they just are self-interested, and you can get involved or you can fight against, and they will have different opinions of you either way you go. And these problems have been solved before, but never in like an open world sandbox like Minecraft experience. Like a voxel survival game have we seen a world that reacts instead of a world that can just be altered, if you know what I mean. So that's what I hope for, in any degree. I don't need it to be the deepest, craziest background simulation that's ever existed. I just want more depth to the mobs, to the factions. I want them to matter more.
I've been playing Red Dead 2 a bit recently, and like they have a good system there where you're like, it will randomly generate stranger encounters where like you're riding on a path and then someone will like call over for help, or like there'll be like a gun robbery, and you can either choose to intervene, you can choose to leave it, you can choose to do a bit of both. I like the idea that there's maybe like specific engagements or encounters for specific races that like either lead you into being their friend or being their foe. And maybe those interactions could be different depending on where they're based in the world. Like Quebec's in Zone 3 might have a different problem than Quebec's in Zone 1, for example. Like that could be cool.
Yeah.
We've been mentioning the word zones, and there was some pretty big news, and I think I actually think that it's some of the bigger news, even outside of the blog post.
Yeah.
Let's just get right into it. Zone 4 is not going to be released.
It feels like 2020 news. This feels like that's how big it feels.
It really does. I think this is the
was
biggest announcement that we've had. Zone 4 is not going to be on launch.
I want to get this chat's opinion. Yes or no? Is that a good thing? I'm so curious what the chat thinks before we start talking about it. Like, I personally think that's a great thing.
Yeah, write it down in the comments before you hear our opinion.
I think it's great. I think it's great.
Okay.
3 zones or
Let's get into it. There were a bunch of comments from John Hendricks on the subreddit. Didn't know that I had to keep up with his Reddit account now too, which is even more on my book. But I'm just gonna read a bunch of things. They're not necessarily in order. There's right here saying John Hendricks, I could have been clearer for the rest of the year. We did not miss a deadline. Oh yeah, this is him saying we did not miss a deadline. Right here, we went through all the factions, but we are prioritizing the content that gets us to a balanced, shippable game. Even if scope wasn't a concern, I believe it's a good idea to ship with less and learn from players. There was a comment here that said, I believe I said this somewhere, but concept art is not a commitment. You are not wrong. If we waited to release the game until every concept we have shared is complete, it will be a long time indeed. We are focused on zones 1 through 3. Those were the two main things. He did reply to a Twitter birthday comment as well, where he basically said that...
were they the Reddit comments, by the way?
Yes, those were the Reddit comments just now.
All right, okay, cool.
And he also confirmed that Zone 5 isn't necessarily Skylands, or we were wrong about Zone 5, we were correct about Zone 6, but I think that's less interesting because the way he hinted it was Zone 4 is an entire game's worth of content by itself, but that doesn't mean there won't be a chance to experience 5 and 6. I don't think the 5 and 6 discussion is very interesting for this regard. I think Zone 1 through 3 are in the game. Zone 5, 6, and 4 are likely not going to be in the launch of the game. What are your thoughts? I think it's positive. That's my first initial
I also
take.
think it's positive. Can I start?
Go for it.
Potentially with this one?
No, you can't.
I'll explain.
I'm kidding.
I'll explain why it's a good thing. I've been saying this for freaking years. There's videos of mine from 2019 where I straight up told them, don't finish the game. Just finish what you have now. Make it really polished. Just not have as big a scope. Or in terms of, maybe not scope is not the right word. Just have like the plans in place still, but you don't have to make the entire thing. Like, we're allowed to enjoy a very high quality piece of the game while waiting for the rest of it. And I'm very glad to see that they're using that mentality. That's been my opinion this whole time, is that they should have done this. That, like, it's silly to want the game to be 100% complete on day one.
Especially something like this.
Especially something.
I see a lot of arguments being like, "Oh, but I wanted Zone 4," and that's valid. It's a lot of people's favorite zone, but also,
would you rather get any zone?
But yeah, exactly. What I'm saying is like, if that means if it's an entire game's worth of content, this is going to take a lot of time to produce. It means we can get zones 1 through 3 released. You can play the game. The thing we've all been wanting to, we can actually do, play Hytale with zones 1 through 3. The amount of information we got, even with the scaraks, zones 1 through 3 are going to have so much content, and that's not including the capital, any minigames, any servers, any modding. That's going to come with the game regardless.
I agree with that now, but like, I do agree with that now, but I will say, for like the better part of 5 years, I've been like very much expecting the game to launch with 6 zones. Like, that felt like a very in stone thing, even though the devs have never referenced really zone 5 and 6 that much, except in like one tiny part of the, arcane footage or whatever. Zone 4 felt like a little bit more realized. Like, they've had concept art since like 2018. So it was a bit of something that took me back a little bit. But then now, like, and I was literally on the fence about that for ages. And then as soon as this blog post came out, I was like, wait a minute. Do I want to wait till not just where they get to where they were at the trailer with zone 1, 2, 3, whatever, but then also beyond that to areas that, let's be honest, during the trailer, they maybe had like 2 screenshots, like 2 mobs in those zones.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they were, I don't know what my mind was thinking, but like the fact that I just always assumed that zone 4, 5, and 6 were just smaller, less consequential zones to the main bulky 3. But now it sounds like they're taking the whole opposite approach of it being, no, if we're gonna do a zone 4 update, the Slothians return or whatever, then it's gonna be, you know, dinosaurs underground update or whatever. Then I'm on board with that, especially the fact that he outlined that it could be a whole entire game by itself, which suggests like separate stories and narrative.
It does imply that what exists in 1 through 3 is already plenty, like compared to like
100%.
originally what a vision of 1 through 6 for us could have been. My stance on it is that I'm actually relieved a little bit, just because as a content creator, if like all these zones existed with the plethora of content, I would have been stressed out of my mind.
Too.
You have a great point, actually.
True, actually.
Everyone is gonna try to rush out as much content on everything as possible, and on top of that, with the excess of even more stuff on launch, like everything would be kind of like saturated by the fact there's so much. So like, there's not really one thing to pinpoint as like what's going to be the big thing to talk about and make content on, if that makes sense.
I mean, let's be realistic.
They're going to get slammed.
Even if they only launched with Zone 1, we'd be stressed out with how many things there's going to be to do or to
especially
cover.
Especially if 4 is an entire game's worth by itself. Like,
I think it does make sense that 1, 2, 3, just because like, I don't know, I'm just gonna refer back to Minecraft here. Like the main iconic like biomes you see is like
I agree.
plain / meadow, desert / you know, what's called
Savannah,
whatever, the one with terracotta.
Mesa.
Yeah, Mesa. Then you have like, you know, the spruce forest and whatnot. Like
Ocean,
so
I
far
guess.
we have like, and oceans. They did actually mention those, so we can have oceans, whatnot. My main concern / my most important aspect that I hope that they kind of keep in mind and really consider with this, like, you know, this is just kind of like slight entitlement speaking, like it's whatever. But I really hope that the way they add stuff later on does not jeopardize your world that you've played. It's very But like, I really hope that like, say if they do intend on doing this thing where like, you know, like me and Ryan and Connor, I think we're talking about, you guys were there for that, but it was like mostly me, Ryan, and Connor, I think that were talking about it. But it was like that whole like, if it is that it's gonna be one main continent for 1, 2, and 3, then these other islands later on. What would be cool is like, say if they did do a zone 4, which we know is to be like a very ashy and lava, you know, destructive on the surface, but you know, this, you know, very beautiful like vegetative like dinosaur world below, is maybe, I don't know, the lore is that once that update is ready, maybe how they introduce it is at some point, if you progress through the adventure quest line, that somehow it triggers a meteor to come out of the sky and crashes into this ocean, and that's bam, zone 4, a new island that has like, you know, the dinosaur stuff below. I don't know, I'd rather want it to be like procedural, that it would add on to your world.
There is one more before anyone comments, there is another John Hendricks talking about Zone 4, where he says Zone 4 is huge, made up entirely of new biomes and factions. I do not intend this as a boast, it's just what it is. Our focus is getting the game out, which means our focus is zones 1 and 3.
Exactly.
I didn't say this yesterday, Red, but also like it plays into my idea of adventure mode being an ongoing narrative, an ongoing story as well. If there was a zone 4 update, that would be something on Orbis has changed to create a zone 4, which is like really cool.
That's the thing. I'm so because I think that depending on how they're going to put in these zones, this could be a genius idea. Like this could genuinely be a incredible idea for. I got nothing but excited when I hear about that.
Keeps bringing you back.
Well, here's the thing, right? Hytale. I don't know if this has been said. I don't hear these two words in the same sentence like ever. But if Hytale is a live service game, then like, and we're not getting all of the open world immediately, how is the story going to work? Because does that mean because there is a narrative in Elite, or there is a narrative. There is a narrative in Hytale. There is like a story. There's characters in it. So does that mean like once we reach the end of the story, they go, well, thank you and wait. We have to sit here and wait. Like how do we get the lead off into what comes next?
I really don't think there's a clean way to do this.
Well, here's the thing, right?
I don't know.
It depends on how the story works, or if we aren't getting the story until all of the zones are out. I'm curious to see what their philosophy is for how the story is going to play out, because I love the idea, like Connor said, that it's an ongoing narrative where we have zones 1 through 3. They have their own little story. Somehow they figure out a way to have the story trail off in a way that isn't unnatural, that isn't like a thank you for playing up to here kind of vibe. And that turns the release of Zone 4, 5, and 6. Those are 3 individual massive in-game events, essentially, for everybody in the community to freak out about. Even if there isn't a meteor that crashes, even if it's not like a Fortnite event where there's a crazy spectacle, everyone's going to be like, the next chapter's here. We all get to be excited at the same time. This is one of the things that made Helldivers work really well, is that their narrative is not told is not told all at once. There isn't just like a go play the campaign. Elite works this way too. It's all in the moment. It's all happening in front of you. But Hytale has the benefit of, once all of the story is out, new people can come in and experience the whole thing. So it could be really powerful, like the way depending on how they go about it.
Depending exactly how they go about it. Like I was saying, like imagine if like the way they introduce Zone 4 is like this, like Myne said, like that John said, of like how it's this whole area of itself. It's this whole world that you could explore, and it's like, you know, worth almost like a whole game by itself. Like, what if like eventually the way they introduce it is not just as like being this new procedural thing that generates every single time you create a new world, but maybe it's something that is triggered once you progress through Zone 1 to 3, like the main storyline. Because once again, if it is a live service, I feel like 30 can probably attest for this. I can attest for it a little bit with Skyblock, for instance. Hypixel Skyblock, you're tried and true, you're bread and butter. Like, eventually, when games are live services, when they add so much, it becomes daunting for a new player.
It does.
To jump into an experience. So if they just kind of refine the original experience, or just, you know, keep it as it is, and introduce the new experiences to people that have already progressed, it allows people to kind of start at that get-go and kind of, you know, take the breadcrumb steps, and then slowly take the grander steps.
It's worth noting too that Skyblock and Vanilla Hytale are going to be very different games.
Oh, for sure.
Is my face cam frozen for you guys?
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yep. That was weird. They are going to be very different games with very different needs, and I feel like primarily a single player experience is my guess. In the vanilla game, I don't know. The idea of, I'd rather have more content than less, personally, even if it does seem daunting. Like,
as long as there's progression there, like there's the beginning and then the end. Then I want it. Like, I don't want more bad.
There also have been comments about the story, and John likes hinting and teasing, and so he didn't give a specific answer. But anytime someone mentions completing the story or getting to the end of the story, he always replies to them and be like, "Oh, you think you're getting to the end of the story? Oh, you think you're completing the ending?" And so,
but likewise, like I've always not liked the fact that Minecraft has had like a definitive end for so long, because like then what do you add on to the progression after that? It's always had that weird thing.
Right? And Hytale's
but like this game, they'll be able to
soon.
do that. They'll be able to hopefully extend the narrative and keep the story ongoing, but then also come back and bloat the progression in general, like add things to the midpoints as well. So,
well, something that another like a live service games have, Destiny's a great example of this, is when you talk about daunting, like whenever a game like Destiny goes for 5-10 years, they have this tendency, it seems like live service games in general have this, where if you buy into the game or start playing the game, like kind of in a window where there isn't a ton going on in the narrative and nothing's happening, then you can't go back. Like Destiny literally removes DLCs. You literally can't go back and play DLCs.
I don't like that at all.
That's bad, yeah.
So that means you literally don't get the story. You don't get it. But like, Hytale,
5 years after Hytale's out, all right, we're getting rid of Zone 4.
Zone 4 is gone.
yeah,
it's gone.
But Hytale has the philosophy of unwrapping the game, and then also I have a question of what happens when all of the zones are out past that. You know, because the narrative, if there is a conclusion, then it's going to have to answer the same question Minecraft asked. Ironically, it's actually a very similar issue, because Minecraft, the way that it did it, well, there isn't really like a set in stone story in Minecraft, but the dimensions, kind of like the zones, are your different stages in the narrative, or of your own personal narrative. The Nether is chapter, or the overworld is chapter 1.
Tangents. Right? Like you've got the deep
yeah.
dark stuff is like a tangent to the main progression as well, like it's a sidestep,
Sure.
but it still creates an extra branch of
Oh, no,
Like
you're
the
right, but,
trial
like,
chambers too.
you know,
now,
here's a
and-
good
Minecraft,
question, then.
like Minecraft, the way it unraveled was the Nether was added. Like, so you would have stage 1, chapter 1 of your narrative is the overworld. Chapter 2 is the Nether. Chapter 3 is the end. That's the end. There really isn't a big difference between that and zones. Like zone 1 is your first chapter, 2, 3. That's like
I
zone
really
3 is kind of
hope
like
it
the
doesn't.
Nether.
No, there's one important thing that he says, and I want to interrupt you because
Okay. Yeah, no,
it
go
disproves
ahead.
everything. Zones are not linear. You can spawn
Good.
in 1
Good.
through 3. You can choose any of, or random, or you can choose, but you can spawn in any of the zones, and any of the 3
that's kinda
zones are your beginning. And when he talked about zones 5 and 6, and I think this is important, they're going to show off information about zone 5 and 6 before 4 is ready, and he talks about the fact that zones are not linear. So it might mean that we might even get zone 5 and 6 before we get 4.
Well, I was gonna say,
aspects of it. Aspects
want
of
the
it.
Aspects,
vibe.
yes.
I very much want the vibe of this game to be like, you almost don't want to do the main quest. Like the side quests are so interesting,
Right, yeah,
and there's so
definitely,
many
yeah.
of them.
Like a Breath
that
of
you
the
just kind
Wild
of ADHD
situation.
your way around
But-
like different places in the world.
Well, yeah.
I think it's
Well,
going to be
that's
like
the thing.
Breath of the
Yeah,
Wild
yeah,
because
yeah.
you
And
see
when the
something,
world-
you can go there.
When the world is so compelling, you just play with the world, and the story
exactly.
is
Now,
just
I
part
want
of
to
that.
ask something, right? How linear / fixed do you think this main quest / story
That is the
Because-
question.
Because like
That is
let's-
the question. Because
like,
if there are ever,
on one end we have something like Skyrim where it's literally like quest 1 to quest 2 to quest 3 to quest 4, or something like for instance Terraria, where like a chapter in the game is just indicated by overcoming a certain feat or boss, but when you can typically activate them,
That one.
you know, in different orders, or you could even try to speedrun them straight off. Like you go to the Wall of Flesh almost immediately and do that. And then, you know, you can take on Skeletron, you can take on the Moon Lord. Like, you don't have to do all these other bosses. You could go straight for the finish line. Like, in fact, like, recently we had a friend over playing Breath of the Wild, and I'm pretty sure,
I was
like,
gonna bring
almost-
this exact
yeah,
example up.
you know, okay, you know exactly what I'm referring to, but basically,
Ganon.
we were watching him play Breath of the Wild a bit, and instead of like going along the whole quest line and everything, he like straight out of spawn rushes to fight Ganondorf straight off the bat. I mean, he dies. He like does fucking
lot.
awful. They can't beat him. But like the point is that like
You
then
technically
he reflects.
can. You technically can.
No, but you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you can try. Maybe you can overcome it
If you're
good
like
enough.
ridiculously.
If you're a
just like
speedrunner, you can. But
That's-
if
But
you're
like it
normal-
was
that's
in that
the-
moment that he reflected and said, you know what? I think I am better off going back and actually doing all these other quests to progress towards a
and
point
that is
where I can
so
better.
much better in my
Yes.
opinion.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and honestly, I don't
Subnautica's
think
the same way too. I want
I
to
don't
point
think Hytale could
Subnautica out
really
again.
do it any other way. Really?
No.
I don't
But
think
like,
they
Well,
can.
they
There's a
can. It would
chance.
just be bad.
But we've already seen that they have a main, like we've already seen that they have like a main, or like I don't know if it is a main, but we've seen that they have quest points, like they have quest like achievements or
Yeah.
objectives. So
Right,
that makes
right.
me slightly concerned. Like maybe there is a
I
chance there
think-
is going to
I
be
don't
like
know.
a
That'd be
relative.
like Fallout.
Well, here's the
It
thing,
could just be like,
you know?
hey, you meet someone, they have a quest for you, and now you're
Okay,
part of that
so you
quest.
mean-
And
like
you can
Fallout
take it or
Vegas,
leave
where
it.
it's like
yeah,
optional.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
okay.
Well, here's the thing. I think it could be really as simple as like, you know, obviously these zones, like you said, aren't linear. They generate themselves in different areas every time you make a game. Well,
Yeah.
all you have to do is just keep a player in one area ish for a little while for one of the quest signs. Like let's say, let's say you go to, I don't know, zone 2 and you get a scarak quest that's like, I need you to go convene with one of the Quebecs in zone 1. Well, then you just
Yeah.
go
So
to
it's more
zone
like a
1.
guide. Like I think you made a good example.
It might
of Fallout New
it might
Vegas.
kind of lean you in different directions and different areas
Yeah.
of the game, but I don't think it's going to be like
But
I
you
don't think it
it's
can
more-
be.
The quest line is
super
more as a
linear.
guide to get you prepared for this final objective or these
Yeah.
objectives. Or
Varen does kind of
goals.
rub me as a Ganondorf. As
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
to use your Terraria and Breath of the Wild examples, Fallout New Vegas also can let you just go straight to the end, basically. Like you
Yep.
could speed run the game without
Yeah.
bugs in less than like an hour, like if you
Yep.
really
Yeah.
wanted. And
Yeah.
Subnautica, you're gonna need at least the oxygen supply. But other than, well, actually no, there's some clips. my point is, you could. You're technically able. There isn't an invisible wall. That's what I want to avoid, where it's very arbitrary. I don't want that. I want there to be a real reason why I can't.
I don't think it's going to be an issue. I don't see how Hytale can't do that. Like, I think Hytale kind of is in a corner where it has to do something like that.
There's also an old interview from Noxy with Legacy Gaming where Noxy says, yeah, everyone's experience of Hytale is going to be different. My experience is not going to be yours. And so the only way he can state that is if it's non-linear.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like what we all kind of can almost unanimously agree upon is that, like, say the end goal is to defeat Baron. We don't want that. The reason why we can't, like, you know, get there faster is because we first got to do, like, a small quest, like, help Oakbeard. Help Oakbeard the Quebec defeat these Twerks. Like, I don't know if it was that fixed. Like, it's not like, you know, it's not like a red flag or anything, but it's definitely like a, okay, they're really.
I think they honestly.
I know what you mean.
I think the quest or the quote story. I think you might be right in the sense that, like, you're posed with Varen, the Ganondorf, and then the game's quests are basically just preparing you. They're teaching you how to interface with the game world, how to get friendly with somebody if you want.
Geared up to a point where you are
geared up, or like the process, like. To get geared up. I think that sounds.
I hate to go back to Red Dead again, but like that whole structure of that game is effectively after the intro to the game, you can go off and do pretty much everything that isn't like content locked.
Yeah. And
you can go and spend 20, 30, 300 hours doing that and then come back to the main game.
So is Breath of the Wild as well.
Do them.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know if Hytale is going to feel more like where you can just go off and literally do everything, including the quest, like the main story quests out of order, or if it's going to be a case of, no, there is thousands of things you can go and spend hours doing, but at the same time, you always have to come back to finish the step-by-step story.
I hope it is not that,
well,
but
we'll know once we get Zone 1, 2, and 3. Because if there's a story present there, then we'll be like, okay, this is how we're moving forward. And I honestly, that's really the only, because there's a million ways they could go about telling the story or portraying a story. The only way to know is to know, you know, 1 through 3 once we're walking around in there.
Great follow-up, but this is kind of like my concluding question, just, you know, for fun here. What if on launch, considering it's only Zone 1 through 3 that we assume, maybe 5 and 6 pieces, but what if launch of Hytale, defeating Baron is not included? That is like a later on.
I'd be okay with that.
I don't know if I don't think it will.
Yeah. I always assumed Baron would be like this lurking.
It's a presence,
evil.
But it's not.
Like,
Imagine
because like if you
be as a community with live service that like a year or two down the line you've got all these like you know add-ons with like Zone 4 or maybe these other dimensions, then finally everyone's worked their way through adventure mode together.
You get the first Lich King kill.
Imagine how big that event would be.
Isn't this how Subnautica's early access went?
I wasn't there for that.
Subnautica's early access, they just kept like adding more story sprinkle as they put more mechanics into the game, and they actually had their own little. It was almost like a little pseudo narrative sitting underneath it just for the early access players because they were hiding like the thing you're going to be doing in the full launch.
I think like you've got to as much as Hytale is surely going to have a lot of nuance and it's not just going to be black and white though, there is a point, and the MCU are kind of dealing with this a little bit, where once you've defeated the big bad guy, then what? There's no evil anymore, or do you need to up the stakes in the narrative?
I don't think we're ever going to
so much they can go
Baron.
to. It's like, I think, Baron's dead, now another guy from Nexus comes to like beat us up, and now we're just fighting Nexus.
We're like, we keep, we can't go after Baron so much.
No, I think Hytale has like I think the story's going to end. I think there will be a moment where the story, like the story's over and you're just left to the world.
Or the first story they tell is over, maybe.
Exactly.
Or the first, if it is a live
story,
if it is a live service situation where we get more stories somehow added to the game
other
throughout
planets.
the years,
planets are
other
also
planets, then all of a sudden the scope is totally different. But from the perspective of just, let's say Zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the game. That's the game. You play the game, and that's it. I don't really know what they could do to push past that, because I think that early on the zones being added to the game could be a really good tool for narrative, like getting everybody in at the same time on some big
reviving
narrative.
the game, like, or reinvigorating.
Exactly. Those are going to be massive updates.
No, they'll be massive
not only
events.
get people back, but also to get people interested. And then once all the zones are announced in the game, then they can do planets. Imagine how huge the planet
that would be crazy. No, that would be nuts.
Build up would be. I think it's going to be super interesting. The only one last thing I want to talk about with zones getting included is we know Hytale's obviously a procedurally generated world. How's that going to work with Zone 4 getting included afterwards in our world? What if we already explored like 10,000 blocks in every direction and generated this world? Do we have to travel 10,000 blocks until we get to see Zone 4?
That's the question. That's like the question.
It'd be nice to have it'd be nice to have a choice. Like, because we know for a fact there are going to be some players that like stay within a 60 block region waiting till those future updates, and then there'll be people that go off and explore the world. Maybe there's like a little option where it's like import Zone 4 or new updates into your existing world, or generate like a new world or something like that. Cool.
One thing that could be interesting is like checking where the player has like placed blocks or structures. And like, if there's chunks where the player just nearest ocean through, then like they can be overwritten.
The most seamless way to do it would be like to have an intelligent generation system that's like you haven't done anything meaningful here. This is just a grass field you walked through like 100 game hours ago. We're gonna generate new stuff.
I have actually like had like a bit of a I wouldn't say it's controversial thought with this, but similar to what you guys just said with the whole like, I don't know, event triggers. Like I'm going back to like the Zone 4 dinosaur meteor concept I was mentioning earlier, that it like crash lands somewhere, right? Like something I thought was very dope about Terraria, for instance, but Skyrim has it a little bit when you like do the whole Civil War quest line that the world changes with time. I like that concept that like the world itself changes. What I think would be interesting, one thing they have mentioned, I think, once or twice was like this whole concept that like you may not necessarily have a main huge base, but rather bases in each of the zones because you're going to be doing a lot of traveling. Like, I think what would be kind of neat is like if you do trigger like this meteor example, that it just crash lands somewhere in the world and could end up completely disrupting the ecosystem that existed there. Your structures that you built there may, you know, be lost potentially. Unfortunately, like, but that's like part of the story is that like, you know, I don't know, I just think it adds a little bit more impact when you invested time into a region, you've got to learn, you know, characters maybe in that region or like factions and whatnot, then just bam. It's like if you've ever watched Game of Thrones, it's like the one episode of The Red Wedding where like, oh snap, everything I knew and loved just dead.
Well,
okay,
well,
actually, here's the thing is that on my personal level, I agree with you, and that's what I would want out of a game. But there is consequence to that because this has happened. This happened in Elite. There was a giant war that broke out with the aliens. An alien invasion happened. The meteor hit human-occupied space, and it ate up a player group. It just devoured a player group. It was the Brazilians. The Brazilians.
No. You can't mess with Brazil. You cannot mess with Brazil.
And they had to just take the liberty of if players lose their progress, they just lose their progress. Yeah, and that's you get give and take with that because then you either piss people off or you give them an even deeper experience. And you know what? In Elite's case, the player base had to come together and save Brazil, but. I don't know how that's going to happen in Hytale because it's different in a single player.
I don't think they could do that, especially thinking of their player audience. There's going to be we're hardcore gamers. You know how many casual gamers are going to be there that literally just want to. They just want to
anti-casual.
They just want to play Hytale, to have their cute kitties, to have their cute puppies, and make a dog dog
a cozy
farm
game
or something like that.
You know, just a cozy game. And then they wake up the next day and their cozy game is fire.
There's a meteor on their dogs. Like
there's a meteor on their dog.
Imagine what shock factor there would be.
No, I think that genuinely it makes it a deeper, better experience for the player, but only for the players that want it, which is the problem.
Well, it depends how valuable the lost items are, right? I mean, if you spent like 100 hours on what you lost, like you're not
just gonna quit
the game.
Yeah, you would just
if you spent like an hour on what you lost, okay, like you're gonna be pissed. Like I'd be pissed.
Like, I definitely see the flaw with my
I wouldn't play for
ideal.
a few days or a week, maybe.
No, I definitely see the flaw with my ideal of this, like, concept. But, like, just imagine that, like, you know, you're going up against Varen, you think you're finally close to overcoming him, then bam, somehow, like, you know, he decides to just summon/cast a meteor from the cosmos to come down into the world. Bam, kind of like almost Palpatine Death Star vibe.
Okay.
Disrupt everything.
I have a great example.
Yeah.
Of a reason why this would not be a good idea. In practice.
Yeah.
I like the words you're speaking. I like the concept.
No, I agree.
But in a game,
right now I'm devil's advocate. Don't you?
This
worry.
has happened to me in Hypixel Skyblock because of a bad UI. I'm gonna make a long story short. I spent 500 million coins when I wasn't supposed to. That is 20 hours of gameplay that I lost in a matter of a second. There is no context where that felt good.
Yeah.
Zero. None.
No, that's the point. It didn't feel good. No, that's that is the point. I'm
bitter about it to this day.
The idea in a design philosophy.
My overall experience has been made worse because of that.
The idea in a design philosophy like Red's is no, that didn't feel good. That's the point.
But the thing is, there's no counterbalance. There's no like, because this was bad.
The counterbalance.
No. It just sucked.
No, let me put it to you this way. Let me put it to you this way. When Brazil got invaded by aliens, that player group, they literally owned that portion of the in-game map. They lost years of progress, like genuine years of progress and projections and BGS. They lost it because it was taken. But the special part of it was that everybody came to their aid and they got it back because the world let that happen.
A game like that.
But Hytale,
you just want to have your cute puppies and
that's the thing.
Game.
Is that it's Elite is it tells you that Elite is a very different game where you expect it to be hard.
It's literally dangerous is in the name.
It's called dangerous is in the name, and it is. But
I like the BGS mechanic for
context.
NPCs, but not necessarily having player interactions that are that
one thing that I will mention though with this is the same way it probably would be like implemented in say like the game like Terraria. So the way the world begins changing and fluctuating is once you kill the wall of flesh, there's like a way once you kill the wall of flesh that like it basically triggers hard mode of the game where everything about the casualty of the game is like over. This is like you're a NAM now, kids. You're gonna be worse mobs. The world will be changing. Everything you loved probably will be destroyed. And that's like kind of like once again those people that really want that like truer experience. They're the ones that are gonna like overcome that.
The only way that I think you could, like I was saying earlier, the only way I think you could pull something off like that in Hytale, like in the case of Elite, is if somehow there is more than just you responsible for giving all of it back. Like if somehow the player gets it all, it's one thing to go through the moment where you think you've lost it, but knowing that you're gonna get it back is a different thing. And in the context of I was saying before, Brazil came back. Brazil's back because everybody wanted to, but that would suggest that the world has to be dynamic enough to recognize you just suffered something and it has to be able to help you somehow. Right. And that's a whole different thing. So I think realistically, it's going to, in my view, it's going to work like Minecraft where a new update comes out, just walk into an ungenerated chunk. And I don't know if it's going to be any better than that because I don't know if it will. Like, I don't know how.
It probably has to do that just for simplicity's sake. I don't know how complicated.
Just to keep an uncompromised gameplay, like an uncompromised. Because some people want Hytale to be a cozy game.
Yeah,
and it will be a
most possible chance to retain players. They gotta do something that doesn't, piss them off.
But I think for the base game, they need to pick something, and then whatever other genres we want to explore with Hytale can be done with servers.
Server modding, and that's the big argument that they always bring is like, you can do it in Hytale. Will it happen in Orbis? Probably not, but you can do it in Hytale.
Yeah,
you can make your own Orbis.
Exactly.
I will be Orbis.
I think this is a good.
I can't wait for the first person or the first team to make the first Orbis. But shifting.
Shift of this is our Orbis, this is our Hytale, but we don't have any Orbis or Hytale. This vlog is a good indicator of where Hytale is going, but we don't necessarily know where it's going. And I want to kind of finish on the future of Hytale. What do we think is going to happen? Do we think there's going to be any more blogs? They say that technical explainers are going to happen. There's a confirmed blog post in the winter. We don't know if there's a one before that. What are they going to talk about? They say Ask Hytale is going to happen. Speaking of which, there was a brand new Ask Hytale during the recording, and
about fonts.
It's about fonts. No one. Let's be honest, Buddha. I'm sorry. No one cares. We were joking about it.
That question was tweeted like 21 hours ago, guys. You guys, whoever's tweeting those are blocking up the real questions and the answer.
There wasn't even an Ask Hytale hashtag on it.
I got a
There wasn't a
response to
hashtag
mine,
on
but there
it
was
either.
no like
That's really
explaining answers to my questions. I sent a bunch of dev questions as a tweet for an Ask Hytale, and then John was like, "Interesting."
Yeah.
That's all he ever said.
I mean, let's kind of talk about Ask Hytale real quick, actually, because that is one of the formats of information. It sucks. Sorry to anyone who's an Ask Hytale fan, but like John's replies, for example, the Zone 4 reply on Reddit is an unofficial. You have to know that his Reddit account is JL_Hytale. You have to be in the Reddit to find out
That's
the
why I think
biggest
he's
information
a bit of a
ever.
loose cannon, though, as well. I think he's a bit of a loose cannon, and also they don't have to do Ask Hytale.
No,
like,
not at all.
They never said they were going to give us like a faction reveal every question, so I can give them a benefit of the doubt a little bit. But
Yeah,
some
I
of them
don't
have
follow
felt a
I
bit
think it's like
repetitive.
when we look at like this font one, though, I think we have to question like, did this need an Ask Hytale? You could have just replied, and they kind of did already reply.
They answered the question because it was easy and it wouldn't cause problems for them later. I don't think it's a capacity issue. They could put an Ask Hytale out every 30 minutes. The problem is they don't want to, you know, with expectations, they don't want to get people thinking a certain way again. They need to, like, a question about a font is easy. It's a, you know, like, why not answer it? Like, what's that going to do for the hype of the game? Nothing. It's fine.
Legal isn't going to get caught up in all the wishy-washy.
I agree, but
revealing
like,
the font.
I think my issue with it is there's so many questions. I mean, if we look at the Ask Hytale question, I know Hawkon has done maybe 50 questions already. There's so many questions in that bank that aren't at all important, that aren't at all legal issues or anything, that are just like the most basic questions that they could just answer here and there, and they don't. I think
that is because they kind of want to crowd control hype right now. Like they don't want to prematurely.
They're playing a game.
Just like let's just take my hypothetical of the 2026 to 2028 rather than sooner. Does it make more sense to, you know, be a bit more quiet, satisfy the very loyal existing pre-community with something here and there, like a cookie crumb, but, you know, for the sake of like not trying to prematurely give off a lot of signals that like, hey, something larger is coming when it's not yet, that maybe it makes sense to kind of be more quiet, or maybe not even.
Well, let me put it
like,
to you this way, right? Like, depending on how they're going to respond, they're going to get a 2.5 hour like podcast with 5 people talking about like what this could mean for the future of Hytale.
I am the target audience for these.
So I think that you know, it's the age-old conundrum of like, do you say, because like they say, you don't want to set up expectations, because if those change, which Hytale has done a lot of changing.
I mean, look at all the talk
you make
about
people upset
already. Like what we spoke about was just like the tip of the iceberg. The amount of stuff that the community's saying. Some people are saying that they remind them of League of Legends characters and stuff, and I'm like,
they remind me.
Oh, I've heard that.
Yeah.
The guy, it looks like that to me personally.
There's like a lot of interesting comments, and that's just the community right now. And once again, like Hytale, what it was in the trailer, probably is not going to be what it is now,
no,
nor
I don't
later.
think so, personally, no.
So like, I think it's kind of like, you know, I don't know. I think they're trying to just kind of keep things low at the moment. They'll like reward
It's a
us
hard
for
game to
being
play.
loyal.
You know, it's a hard game to play, so they're just playing how they can.
I do feel bad for like Buddha and the marketing people that.
God, I feel terrible.
Yeah.
They're the front lines.
I feel terrible for them, man.
Frustrations of the
I'm always
community.
like hyper paranoid about like the things I say at like round tables and stuff, because I'm like, what if that comes
What's
off
crazy? It's literally just
wrong.
Buddha as well. I feel so sorry.
Yeah, he's
the only guy.
He's getting all the
no,
DMs.
there's-
He's getting all the
John too.
replies.
People, it's
If
just more
any
that
Hytale
he's the
devs are
middleman.
watching this, man, we love you. Like we love you. We're just nerds.
That's the
man.
thing I feel like is very important to keep in mind, is that like
Yeah.
the entire team making this game are all probably very excited. I'd assume, since they're
Very
working
stressed,
on it.
I would imagine
Yeah.
too.
Stressed, but also excited. But yeah, once again, stressed about like the fact that first, they probably know things about the game that is different from what we assumed.
That we're talking
And-
about even in this roundtable.
Yeah, that they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
man, they are not gonna like.
They're like,
hear
oh,
Yeah, there are
what?
things we've all agreed on probably
Yeah.
that they're just not going to do.
They're just like,
Yeah.
wait,
That's the reality of it.
Yeah,
live
or like-
service.
Yeah, or like, you know, I don't know. There's gotta be something that like we have assumed is gonna be in this game that has definitely been changed, and then like once like that is revealed to the community, there's definitely gonna be people that complain or saying like, oh, this is not the game I wanted, you know, 4 score and 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
some people are gonna be like that, and like I don't know. That's once again why I think they're not really doing as many Ask Hytales nor blog posts even.
And the thing I know for sure, they've said this multiple times, especially John. He's like, I wish I could tell you everything. He really just wants to tell us everything, and you can kind of tell what by the way he answers, and they're like itching to say it, but they know they can't. They know they need to keep it a secret, and so.
But they're being communicative about them wanting to, and
and I think that's important to know. And I
like
think
the blog post coming at the end of the year, knowing that is the most we've ever known about a blog post, other than the one we just had, right? Like we've not had forecast blog posts in a long time.
The last winter John teased, where he actually shouldn't have teased.
He said, did he not say there'd be more blog posts this year?
Which is like they did say that there's going to be more blog posts this year than last year. Which
now they've basically all but confirmed, like there is a blog post in November or December. Like that is happening based on their current timeline projections.
Well, that's their plan. That's their plan. That's what we know.
That's the plan.
Do we think it will be substantial enough though? And do we think then that'll lead into a full year of development in 2025? Or do you guys think they might start marketing, or like Riot might
let's go into that. When do we think what do we think is happening in this winter blog post?
Blonks.
I don't think much.
Blonks.
You don't think much?
They're gonna fill in the blonks, bro.
No,
they're gonna fill in the blonks.
I want them to show blonks.
If they show that PvP game mode,
if they show us bonk sticks, then I am satisfied.
From Hypixel, from what I'm assuming, but I want to see blonks.
I genuinely believe they're going to try and recreate the combat playtest footage in the new engine by the way that they describe that they're making that bonk mini game. Like, I don't know why they'd make that mini game if not to do another one of them in the playtest. Because what you join Hytale Online, this absolutely incredible capital with all the types of mini games they've got on the Minecraft server. You join and it's like, welcome to Bonk Sticks. I don't see that happening. Like that seems like a fun little development game just to tease. Like, we can't tell them our official mini games, but we can tell them the little game we played during the combat playtest. That's
we messed around with Bonk Sticks.
Or something to do in the lobby.
I want to play Bonk Stick.
And to
Sticks in the Hytale lobby.
To kind of fuel the guesses for what the winter blog post is, we got to remember their anticipated goal for the winter, and they've been on track for all of their goals, is that winter is going to be the most playable version of Hytale to date.
Okay.
That's
by that logic. Then
here's the thing, right? This is the moment where like another 2.5 hour podcast spawns, because that could mean a lot.
Yeah,
that could mean a lot.
Well, I'll tell you my interpretation. That tells me that the game's systems are ready, which means we should get an example of game systems, like what I said earlier: placing a torch on the holder on the wall, lighting another torch with a torch. I'm not saying those features specifically, but that type of stuff where it's interacting with the world, seeing what certain objects do. I think that would probably be their best way to prove that things are moving along, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I'm not one for like, oh, this is a pretty image.
Here's the thing, right?
The graphics, like a statement. I want to see things work.
I agree. I 100% agree. But the thing is like the statement of it's as playable as it is. It's the most playable it's ever been. Is like, it's a crazy statement, but like there's so much vagueness because we don't know how playable it was.
Exactly, but I think so. This is my argument always when I heard this, and I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. The most playable game, more than playable, or here, I have the exact quote. This end-of-year milestone will represent the most functionally complete version of Hytale to date.
Oh, see, that's different.
Exactly.
But, like, I think they can only... Sorry, Myne. I was gonna say, like, they can only say that once, right? Because the reason they're saying that so specifically is because they know that there's going to be all this confusion with them catching up to the legacy engine's progress. Yeah. They can't say that after that though, because every day after that day will be the best that the game's ever been, right? The most playable it's ever been. So they can only use that once, and they've chose to use it for December, which I think is really important. Actually.
And I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. So the game was officially their deadline was 2021 release. The game was supposed to release there. In around 2020, they got bought by Riot. They decided to rework the engine, and that's basically the restart. So around 2020 was the last like full progress work on the legacy engine. And so if 2020 was the last playable version and it was supposed to release the exact next year, if this next version in December is more playable than it was in 2020 and in 2021 is the release, I'm thinking, how much left is there if it's already the most playable version?
See. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. You make so much sense, but if I believe that, my heart will be shattered if it does not happen.
I'm just putting logic.
Yeah.
No, I get your logic. I get it. I see it. But like,
thing though, like they did also say that like while they're working on the new engine, they're still working on the old engine side by side to add more, and like features in terms of content for adventure doesn't necessarily imply functionality. Functionality could just mean like linking and piecing together all, like literally as like that one like the goblin screenshot or drawing image in the blog post, that they're finally combining a bunch of functions and different like features together so that they all kind of work hand in hand. Like that's like from all we know, like, you know, as we can guess from that image, like all these things have like kind of existed in their own gray walls. I think, is that the term, gray walls? Like when basically it's like basically when like it's like a vertical slice that exists on its own for a specific concept, for instance combat, or like maybe how bosses work or how mobs behavior work or mini games or everything. And now maybe to winter they're finally going to begin actually kind of stitching them together so they work kind of side by side. That's what I'm assuming it means. That like finally it's gonna go from a state of where they're all kind of like their own external entities, that they're being merged together.
Someone said earlier as well, they may have like tools in place to do that. They may have designed specific software just to port some of these things over as well. Depends on how quick that they can do a lot of that. But then also they've took back the scope as well. So it's not like they've got 1,000 mobs to transfer. Like they're actually
they're only deciding which mobs need to be in. Three zones. Not every mob is going to be in the game. They're
3 zones.
They've
that's the thing, right? Is
functional.
Are we talking most playable or functional? Because I interpret
the quote is functionally complete. I don't want to take
I interpret playable and functional as two different things. I interpret functional as collision is working. You know, lighting is functional.
That's what I'm
there
thinking.
aren't glitches with the torches. Like are like, I interpret functional as the product is functioning. The engine is working. Whereas playable is there's a game now on top of the functional engine, the functional game.
I don't think it would be playable. I think it would be functional.
Because that also.
So then the question is, how long after it's like functionally complete, or at least most functionally complete? How long after that until it's playable?
Well, how long does it take? How long does it take to make a canvas and then paint on top of it? Like those are two different. Those are two different things, right? So if the canvas is the most complete it's ever been. And they have, don't get me wrong, they've been literally, like you said, they've been working on the old engine. They've been painting on the old canvas. But like, how now the process, the painting might be different now. The scope, like, we don't know what their definition of like, or our definition.
But I also don't think that analogy. I don't think that analogy works because the canvas in this case is the bulk of the work. The canvas is building the engine.
No, it is. No, I don't disagree.
Just putting a few brush strokes on and you're done.
Oh, no, I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree that getting the engine done is the bulk of the work, but that's not to say it doesn't take a long time to get the game to work on top of it. You know, the engine took what, like 5 years, 3 years? Making a game could take another 1 or 2. That's still less work than the engine, but it's still it could take a while. That's how I see it.
We've been ignoring the game design portion of Hytale. I think, like, one thing we should remember is that when they decided to start making the new engine, they never stopped designing the game. They never stopped with concept arts, brainstorming. So, like, in most creative endeavors, I would say the ideation is some of the hardest stuff to do. Once you already have
they
solid
clearly
idea,
know theirs is the best. Yeah,
real quick. Even when y'all say playable, are y'all just referring to the adventure mode? Keep in mind, there's mini games, there's a creative.
That's the thing.
There's
so much going on in Hytale that it's like, like technically the majority of the work is done, or at least close to being done, or we're even starting on that second half. But there's still a lot to do in that second half.
If we go off of what they like to differentiate between Hytale and Orbis, Orbis is separate to Hytale. And they mention Hytale.
Orbis.
Oh.
So adventure is different than the rest.
Yes.
Yes.
Adventure Orbis is what we call it now.
Because every single time
interesting.
someone asks, like, can you do this in Hytale? And they're like, yeah, you can do it in Hytale. Maybe not Orbis. You can do it in
Maybe not
Hytale.
in Adventure of Orbis.
And so
but
they
in
specifically
Yeah, like
mentioned
they're-
Hytale.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Their
That is
adventure
very
mode is
interesting.
like their version of what could be made with the engine, right? So
Yeah.
like you could go and make a world with 50 other people and completely customize it to be your own. You could make Nexus before they release the update with Nexus in it, technically, if you had the
Oh
people,
yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
That's kind of the vibe they have, like, which is quite interesting as
So
well.
yeah, we're not specifically just talking adventure mode. We're talking about the game itself, and I hope that they're staying, you know, in line with their own terminology when they talk about Hytale. They're not just talking about adventure mode. They're talking about the way they've described Hytale in the past. It is the sum project, not a certain.
Well, that
part
if
of the
anything, that
project.
makes me feel like it's farther away because like adventure mode is the game for a lot of people. Like
Yeah.
adventure mode is Hytale for a lot of people.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, when are we playing adventure mode? That's where I'm going. And if we're talking about, because you know, adventure mode, like you said, it's a kind of a separate thing, or it could be, you know, from what we've understood or what we've extrapolated. It's kind of like you could do that in Hytale, but maybe not in adventure mode.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a difference between when we get Hytale and adventure mode, then I'm worried about when we're getting adventure mode. But if we're talking about the whole, I think it could be longer. That's what makes me feel like.
But I don't
take a
think we're
little
getting
while.
Hytale without adventure mode.
I don't think so either.
I don't think
I
so
don't
either. I don't either. So that means we're waiting on the whole, or at least, well, not the whole, because you know, zone 1 through 3, yada yada yada. But what we're getting, what launch is in quotes. So that's a lot of systems to release at once. Like that's just, I don't know if we're like. That's what makes me think it's going to take a little while, and I think the next blog post might not have much
It's
in
not
it.
looking so unrealistic, is it now? Huh?
It doesn't.
No, I think I'm still.
But here's the
team
thing: I
2025
also
or 6.
agree that it could be next year. It could be.
Wow.
It could be.
Okay.
I think it could be any of these numbers because
So let me
I
get
can
this
see the
straight.
logic in all of the different
Do you
perspectives.
think if, like they said, Hytale as itself, not Adventure of Orbis, is playable by winter, you think it actually could take less than a year after that for everything to be done?
If adventure mode or well, you mean Hytale excluding adventure mode?
Well, like using Myne's logic of, yeah, they refer to Adventure of Orbis as Adventure of Orbis, and then they Hytale is the entire platform as a whole now. If they're referring that Hytale being functional is that, you know, everything's being stitched together and actually works as like a proper system rather than being, you know, external components, and Adventure of Orbis being a completely separate entity on top of that. So it's only the engine or the system that's functional at the end of the year. Do you think that they can finish Adventure of Orbis within a year after that?
It depends on how functional and complete it was before.
I have a feeling they've been making Adventures of Orbis as a way to develop the game. You know,
Probably.
Yeah.
because how
I'm
could
sure
you
they probably have, but
how could
I
you
feel
code a
like-
game without literally making at least little bits and pieces of the finished thing?
It's like
you know?
it's like what
Like, how
engine
can you-
would we need to make the game we want
Yet
to play?
again,
and then they've made
how
they
can
made
you properly code it and I guess put together a game if, you know, the movement mechanics and the combat mechanics are still being worked on, or like, you
Yeah.
know, how like
Like, we don't
magic
have,
system
like,
is
yeah.
completely external from that, how building is a different thing. I don't know, like obviously these are just
I think it
made
could take a while.
components, but, yeah.
Like my problem is I don't know where on the timeline we are.
Yeah, I
right
think
now.
that's the
Yeah.
biggest issue. And I think if we continue this, we can have this conversation for another 30 minutes, but I think we're
Whatever.
running in circles because we don't know what
don't know.
their terminology means. And they've had that issue before where they've said things, we've interpreted it a certain way, and they're like, wait, actually, we use this internally completely different than even like this industry standard version. So I think the discussion we've had
I
right
mean,
now
Myne
about
as well,
that,
like, I know you're trying to wrap up, but as well, like they've literally given us like levels of quality in the blog post before this, and then this blog post they gave us like the whole levels of playable and
Yeah.
testable. It's a lot, and it's very.
and then they've
confusing to
given
have
us
to
the
pick
rings
apart that
as
and figure it
well.
out.
Right.
They've given
Yeah,
us
it's
so
a lot,
many
it's a lot.
different like stages, and it's difficult because we don't know which stage applies to what and how it means internally, because we're looking from the outside. They're not giving us that context. So I think if we want to find out, you know, when is adventure mode ready versus when is Hytale ready versus when is the creator tool ready, we need definitions at the very least of what all of their things means in context.
I'd say if they contradict themselves, you should probably believe the most recent thing.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because the timeline is like literally 5 years. Like people change their minds, right?
100%. There's so many things internally that's probably already changed. I want to end it off by going to each person, and we're going to give our official, and we're going to be proven right or wrong in the future release date. And by release date, there's always
specific date or a range.
A range, I think, is better. I think it's a day in a month doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
And I want to define what release date is, because some people think like the official release date after beta, but let's be honest, no one really cares about the official release date, because the beta, we're gonna have the game and we're gonna play. So I'm gonna relabel it the official beta. When can we play Hytale? Is basically what I'm asking. Connor.
I want to say June 2026. Sorry, go on.
And like put a little bit of why. Like, why do you believe that?
Yeah. So like reason being, I feel like they're at the stage now where it's like go time. Like they've got everyone, they're onboarding everyone. By the end of this year, they'll have everyone ready to go in the new engine, and that is a full year and a half technically of developing the actual game, not the engine, the game, and all the tools that go with it, which they've been working on in tandem. I feel like that's enough time to get something playable out. So I genuinely believe around midway through 2026 is like my guesstimate right now, but I don't think it'll be any sooner than that, just to clarify.
Okay, interesting. 30, I know you're gonna probably disagree a little bit.
Well, I do, because again, why would they reach out to creators, you know? I don't know. It seems to me, I feel like if they're reaching out to people now that are external, then they should probably have something ready to show them or give them or have them work with, you know? Because otherwise, putting together a contact list 2 years ahead of time isn't really that productive, you know what I mean? Like, there has to be a reason why they're doing that. And again, like what Myne was saying, which was kind of like what I was touching on at the start of this whole thing, like Hytale, when we saw it in 2018, the plan, or at least I thought it was 2019. I don't know. You said 2021. Maybe it became 2021 was the plan. I don't know. But like the plan was at any given point that we saw the game, it was like, okay, it's a year or two out from release.
Yep.
Like, and then the engine thing happened, and then that threw all of that out. But now that we're back in that place again, I do think it's anywhere from a year to 2 years. But if I had to put a specific range, I would probably say like end of Q2, beginning Q3 of next year, so 2025.
End of Q2 next year.
Hey yo,
Woo!
hey yo.
I hope you're right.
Here's the thing.
I would be happy if that was true.
I'm gonna
I hope you're right.
And here's the other thing. This is with the assumption that they're not making all of Hytale. They're just making zones 1 through 3.
Yeah.
They're giving
That's true.
They're giving creators access to make, let's say, servers and stuff. And here's something I've been wanting to say this, is that the second they give people access to dev tools, that's just an autonomous process that's happening separate from them until the game dies. Like, there's gonna be people working on entertaining content for Hytale from the moment they give people the tools. So I think if they're giving people these tools, let's say, they're reaching out to creators now, so it's safe to say that maybe, this is a guess. It could be within like the next 6 months to a year that like people are given the ability to work on Hytale externally. So in my opinion, yeah, I would say somewhere like summer to fall.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that because
year.
I've only been more confident in this guess. I've been summer 2025 for a very long time now, and I think this blog post reassures my assumption that it is summer to fall of 2025. At the very latest, I think it's going to be winter, maybe
December.
But I think it is, my guess, summer 2025. But if it has to be, it'll be fall. I'm also in that team. I think I've always had this logic of like, the reason they can't show any of the game, the reason they can't market, they can't do anything is because the engine's not ready. They can't really showcase it, and it's not in a marketable state. It still really isn't right now. It's not in a pretty state. But I think at the end of the year, they're going to have enough time in the engine to work on the lighting, to work on all of the anti-aliasing and all the issues, to the point where once the end of the year comes, they're going to start being able to ramp up marketing. And here's the thing. Here's another thing. It's never been an important thing in the past, and it probably won't be. But the release date of the trailer was December 13th. and
Not gonna.
No. This is. I understand. I prefaced this sentence by saying it's never been important.
Mom, I need Hytale for Christmas. Oh my god.
No. It's not. I'm not even talking about release dates. No. Game Awards. Game Awards is happening the day before that. This year. I'm putting an implication. I'm putting.
Wait. Do you mean the blog post or the release of the game? I'm so confused. You mean the blog post, right?
No. I'm saying December 13th was the trailer, right? Right. And so the day before that, this year, December 12th, this year is going to be the Game Awards. I feel like it's just a cool time coincidence. I'm not saying anything else apart from that. But I think it would.
Imagine telling your dev team though you've got 4 months to make.
Not the release, but not the release, but like that's a trailer. For a trailer.
It's hard to do that.
I know, but I think it's a cool time experience. But I think
I would sooner believe the staff would go against that date rather than go for it. I think they would specifically try.
I agree. It's just something I've kept in mind. I don't think it's going to be realistic. I think they're going to show off the engine in a good state. They're going to start marketing 2025 and summer 2025 to fall. I've rambled a lot. Radunes and Fezzy, you have the floor.
You go first, Red.
Okay, y'all aren't gonna like this. Y'all aren't gonna like this. You know, I also like December 13th. I like that. I like that day. I think
just a different year. You don't like the year I said.
Oh well, I like the year. I just don't believe it.
Okay.
I think 2027. December 13th, 2027.
Right at the end of 2027.
So basically 2028 is what you're saying. Basically 2028 is what you're saying.
We've got such a huge range.
So what's the reasoning then versus our answers?
My reasoning is that, okay, I'm gonna base this off like what we discussed and whatnot. Hytale Functional is different from Adventure Orbis. Adventure Orbis, if it really is gonna be this super content-heavy game, it's gonna need a lot of work. Sure, they've probably done a lot of work, but it's gonna need a lot more, especially in bringing it over to the new engine. On top of that, we're not accounting for the fact that we also need to give creatives time to actually make products that are ready for launch. On top of that, they also have creative mode to work on. They have the mini games to work on, and then they also, since they are a live service, they probably do want to have time to begin working on upcoming features and upcoming content after launch, right? And I'm assuming, especially with all that in mind, they also want to give time for some sort of like early testing phase to really quality assure the product, but also to make sure that everything is as smooth as possible and ready all around. Keep in mind, what we are hopefully going to be receiving isn't just a game, it is a platform.
Yes.
And if it's supposed to be taking over, taking over is the wrong word, but if it's supposed to be, you know, one of the pillars amongst, you know, great platforms as Roblox and Minecraft, I feel like they really need to like make sure that launch doesn't go wrong. And I think that does kind of benefit from having more time than less. On top of that, one small benefit, this is kind of a twisted mindset, but it's true. The longer it does take to come out, the less of a threat certain games like Minecraft becomes. Because with
I
Minecraft,
disagree.
I think it will. I think it is.
Like, I don't think Minecraft is a threat even right now.
I don't think it's like a proper threat. But right now, Minecraft is in a resurgence from like its dead state a year ago.
I think Minecraft's going to become a threat because they're making some crazy changes and they're not stopping. Like this game is going to continue making Microsoft money and like.
I think Fortnite's a threat. I mean,
Fortnite
I think really
is also a threat.
GTA 6 is going to be a threat too.
GTA 6 is
thinking about that then.
Sure.
Like I think there's.
Threat is definitely not the right word because I'm not.
Yeah, but
I don't look at Hytale as a Minecraft 2.0, but to public perception, a lot of people do perceive it that way, or at least like that. It's
the
like supposed
Minecraft
to kinda,
killer.
I see
voxel games are a genre.
I see Hytale as an evolution of the genre.
I see it as like the Valorant to a CS:GO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I just think, like, obviously it's very twisted logic, but to me it makes more sound sense that it will take longer than be out next year. But that could also be from the sense that I have just been so used to it taking this long that I can see it taking longer.
You just can't be disappointed anymore.
You can't.
Like,
You can't
yeah,
have
no,
your
I
heart
think
shattered.
it is almost a Riot Games philosophy that take as much time and resources as you can to make sure it is perfect and nothing is wrong.
That's
And
just
then, like,
that
is Riot
mindset.
Games. That is Riot Games mindset. Name a product that Riot Games like officially like pushes out themselves that is flawed.
Yeah, they always will launch
Yeah,
perfect
yeah.
products.
Valorant was
That is-
Valorant had one of the smoothest launches like ever.
Yep.
That is.
They had a
their
better
thing.
launch than CS2 did.
Yeah, Riot Games, their philosophy is to launch a perfect product or not at all. They have canceled so many products because
The
they're not
Smash
good.
Fighter.
A lot of them. Well, no, well, maybe I don't know.
That
But,
was the
like,
most recent one, is why I
Okay.
mentioned it.
I do think they also canceled their. I don't know if they canceled their MMO.
No,
or
it's
they
still in
just
progress.
delayed it.
I think they
Wait,
just
what
delayed it
did
in-
Fezzy what did Fezzy
indefinitely.
say?
Menzi's not gone yet.
Huh?
Oh,
but
sorry,
it's-
my bad.
Menzi's
Oh,
doing
yeah.
now. But yeah, I'm sorry to be pessimistic in y'all's eyes, but I don't know. I'm just trying to be a bit realistic to some regard, but I guess realism is about perspective. So
Well, we only have so much info,
Yeah,
so it's not
exactly.
like
Yeah,
any of us
true.
are
Well, it is
Yeah,
really
that's the
very
thing, right?
subjective.
It's-
right or
No,
wrong, really.
exactly.
Like,
The fact we're all experts at this,
Yeah.
and yet all of our projections
Exactly.
are like a year apart from
And
each other is hilarious.
Once
Like,
again,
well,
even though I
yeah.
have that date and that year in mind, nothing would please me more than it coming out 1, 2, or even 3 years earlier. But
Yeah.
you know, we'll see.
Well, I'll also include my like send off note in this for this whole thing because this has been awesome, by the way.
yeah, we had a really productive
Thanks,
conversation.
Myne.
We
Yeah, man.
my date, the date I agree with is Connor. Now that's to say the launch date, as in the everybody gets to play date. I think creators are going to get access to things earlier than that. I think they're going to get access to that within the next 6 months. I think creators are going to start getting access to things soon.
interesting.
But I also think that we don't give enough credence to there is going to be a block of months, like maybe even quite a substantial amount of them for marketing. Like there's going to be a moment where
yeah.
the game is done
Oh, yeah.
and we got to tell people about it. And Riot
and the trailer
loves
comes
their
out
marketing.
and stuff.
When the
Like,
trailer comes out, when it gets maybe has a spotlight at a convention like the Game Awards, like there's going to be a time where the game is technically ready for everyone to play, but they're not just going to go, all right, guys, the final build is printed.
Well,
Put it
yeah,
on
I
the
think
website.
marketing is going to be
So-
definitely a few months, but even Valorant
agree.
didn't have that long of a like promotion. It
That's
was
true. You're right. Actually,
like
you're right.
3 or 4
Valorant kind of
months of promotion.
surprised me with how quick it was. Just like
it was like
playable.
3 to 4
But
months. Everyone knew about it already, so they don't need a 6 month, 12
You're
month
right.
promotion.
You're right. But also, I guess it depends on Riot's mentality on if they're going to want this to be the industry changer that we think it could be. Because there is going to be a block of time where the game's done, creators are working on it, and they're doing marketing. And I think that generally they also knowing Hypixel Studios, they're going to want to make sure this thing is polished, even though it's not finished. They're going to want to make sure the edges are clean. So I think there is a year of polish. I think that 2024/2025 is a year of polish and polished promotion and creator input. And then they also, you got to remember, this is a company. They're going to have a strategic time where Hytale's released. It's not just going to be, all right, the marketing season's done, so we're just going to drop it next Tuesday. They're going to say, this is the month we target. This is the strategic month for
just
launch.
to
And
reiterate,
historically, it's been June. Valorant released in June.
you are talking about the release or the beta, like the first playable.
The public play beta. Yeah,
Okay.
beta. So
Beta.
yes. Zone 1 through 3, we don't have everything. That's the first publicly playable build.
Okay.
Is, I think, June 2026. I think that there's a chance, creators get their hands on it earlier. But I think June 2026 is happening. And ultimately, that send-off note I was talking about, we all have our different projections, our opinions, our discussions, our disagreements, and our agreements. But one thing all of us here one thing we all have is an open mind.
Yeah.
We're willing to let the chefs cook. And that's the impression I want to give off to the audience is we can all have our discussions and our speculations, but let the chefs do their thing, because I'm not worried. I think this game is going to going to be amazing. And I don't care if it comes out in 2026 or 2027. I want it to be 2025, and there's a good chance it is. I think personally, it's realistic. It could come out either one of those years, but I don't really care because, I mean, this blog post, even though, it was probably one of the more controversial ones of them, I ironically walk out of it going, I think these chefs are cooking.
Yeah.
I think they're cooking.
It's controversial for people that don't know
the history
anything about game development or design.
Yeah. But I'm ready to see what they're cooking. I'm excited for that December blog post. I want to see what's in there. I'm okay if there's not going to be much in it, but I'm excited to see either way.
It's funny because around last year, anyone on the outside seeing anything from the game would have been amazing. But then and we were the ones that were like, oh no, but that means certain things because we know all the details. Now it's kind of flipped where we're like, we've seen it and we know what that means. And we're like, no, we don't want them to release.
We actually want to hide it right now.
Think of it a different way.
Yeah,
we want to hide Hytale. Anyway.
But that's my official guess, June 2026. There you go. That's my stamped send.
So we've got 2025, 2026, and 2027. That's the
prediction. Yeah, we've got a 3-year range. And
it's weighted 2-2-1. So 2 people believe it's next year, 2 people believe it's the year after that, and then 1 believes it's 3.
Heck yeah, man.
And both of the first two, because there's a bit of a contingency. Both of the first 2 believe it's going to be summer of that year. And then Radoons thinks it's going to be December of the year.
So basically 2028. Like basically 2028.
Listen, man. It just seems right.
No, it doesn't.
Hey, if Radoons is right, I don't know if I'll be around anymore.
On the note of Radoons, that's 10 years exactly. So,
oh Lord,
happy anniversary, I guess.
2028 to 2018.
I think the greatest part of it all is that I think pretty much besides the closest trajectory or expectation, I think I would have 1 million subscribers by the time the game comes out, and I find that hilarious based on projections. So
I'd like to have the 10-year anniversary in game though if I was.
I would. Yeah, no, I mean I would so bad.
The fact that we missed the boat for the 5 years is already kind of insane.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh my God, you're right.
We didn't even have a 5-year anniversary.
We didn't have a 5-year anniversary in game. Oh, guys. Oh.
We'll have some sort of anniversary.
Thank you so much, dude.
Thank you, Myne. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
I honestly felt like...
Thank you guys as well for the chat.
This honestly took me back to what OG Hytale discussions felt like, especially during the Scarak ones where we were just geeking out about the different possibilities of the zones being able to interact. I really, really felt like we were back in 2018, 2019, just talking about the game we love. I thought it's really, really informative to hear these different opinions, because I mean we really all have different opinions about what the blog meant, what the state of the game is, and I thought it's super productive. I think a lot of the devs are definitely listening. I don't know if they're listening all 3 hours.
If they are, they have love you. To chew through.
We love you, devs.
Where's our overtime, Myne? Come on, man.
We love you, devs. We love you.
I hope we brought up some interesting points that they might not have thought about. I think we brought up some interesting discussions here. And maybe there's a lot of points where they were like, hey, these guys are idiots. Respectfully.
Wow, these guys have no idea what they're talking
about. I have no doubt.
But
I'm open to it. I accept it. I'm ready.
I'm glad we were able to have this discussion. I think it's going to be super interesting to see what the next blog post is. Like Fezzi said, let them cook. I think they're in the labs. They said this is their ugly duckling. I hope we see a swan in December, and who knows? we might be able to bring the roundtable back for the December blog.
Ready when it's ready.
It does kind of seem fitting to me that they take until December to finish the engine, and then that's when they reach out to like creative people that make stuff, and then over the next 6 months they make stuff, and then game comes out.
You're speaking my language. You're speaking my language.
Makes sense. I hope you're right. I have my prediction, but I hope your prediction's the right one.
I think everyone hopes that you and I are correct. Everyone is probably thinking.
Please be right.
Everyone's probably thinking that Connor and Fez is right, but they're hoping to be on our team. With that,
and then people are hoping that
no one's with red. Right. No one's with
red. Somebody out there is like, you know what? That red guy you know, it's blasphemy, but it's probably right. Surely there's gonna be someone out there.
Well, let us know if you've stuck around for all 3 hours. First off, thank you so much. You guys are real Hytale fans, I think.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, yeah, you stuck through a 3-hour long. Oh my god, you're here. What are you doing here?
Let us know your thoughts. I'm sure by the end of this, you all probably are already commenting and having a lot of discussions yourself. I'm super interested what your thoughts are. I'm so interested. Guys, I'm losing it. I think we're just gonna send it off. We'll see you guys in the next video. If you're a fan of my channel, subscribe, by the way. I haven't said this once. Subscribe
to Myne.
And we might be able to bring back the roundtable for the next big blog post. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.
Bye. Bye, everybody.